Chapter 81. The Annihilator of Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect, Chu Zhetian. Where the massive, black coffin landed, flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The powerful warriors of the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect, who had been rushing towards Xiao Yueyue, and the others, suffered heavy casualties in an instant. You see, these two black coffins weighed a staggering 10 million jin. Even a golden core expert would have to exert all their strength to move them even a tiny bit. The destructive power of such a terrifying weapon, falling from the sky, was unimaginable. The ground at the point of impact was directly smashed into two enormous pits. The surrounding ground was covered in spiderweb-like cracks. Who is it? Zhong Guangxiao's eyelids twitched violently, and he instinctively looked up at the sky. This visually impactful scene made this Golden Core Stage 8 expert feel a sense of fear and trepidation. The others were even more shocked and terrified by the two huge black coffins. For a moment, their attacks against Xiao Yueyue and the others all came to a halt. Bang! At that moment, a figure descended from the sky as well. Daddy! Junior brother! Upon seeing this figure, Yueyue shouted out in delight. Miao Yuming and the other two also called out in excitement. Looking at them, Chu Zhetian let out a long sigh of relief. Thank goodness. He had covered 1,000 miles a day and finally arrived in time. Although Miao Yuming, Yueyue, and the other three were clearly injured, and Xiao looked incredibly weak, they were still standing alive in front of him. This finally allowed Chu Zhetian to put the worry that had been weighing on his heart to rest. You're finally here? Xiao asked softly, her eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions as she looked at Chu Zhetian. There was joy, confusion, and a hint of a small woman's resentment. I'm sorry I'm late. A hint of apology appeared on Chu Zhetian's face. Daddy! Yueyue immediately pounced over, hugging Chu Zhetian's leg like a koala. Baby, it's okay. Daddy is here. Chu Zhetian patted his daughter's head, and looking at the dried blood on her lips and nostrils, he felt both heartache and anger. Junior brother, you certainly made quite a commotion this time. Little junior brother, are you here to live and die with us? At this moment, Zhang Wenxuan, Tang Yitai, and Miao Yuming also came over and spoke up. However, facing the encirclement, the three of them didn't seem so optimistic. Even though Chu Zhetian had appeared and used the coffins to crush a whole group of enemies. Zhetian, can you do it? Xiao also looked around and glanced at Chu Zhetian uncertainly. Hearing this, Chu Zhetian smiled. In his confident smile, there seemed to be a hint of arrogance. If they were to scatter and run, perhaps I wouldn't be able to kill them all. As his words fell, Xiao's beautiful eyes flashed. She knew that Chu Zhetian's strength must have improved by leaps and bounds in recent days. Even she, after obtaining this supreme Tao scripture, had seen her strength jump from the first level of the nascent pellet stage to the 7th level of the nascent pellet stage. Not to mention Chu Zhetian, this monster. He had previously been able to single-handedly kill 3 Grand Witches of the Dark Knight Palace. Now, he was probably even more formidable. But Xiao inevitably felt a little worried. However, upon hearing Chu Zhetian's words, she was instantly infected by his confidence and arrogance. How could she not trust her man? Utterly arrogant. Are you that Chu Zhetian? Is it you who killed my daughter? Zhong Guangxiao's eyes, like those of a venomous snake, stared at Chu Zhetian and asked. Whoosh. With that said, he slashed a blade towards Chu Zhetian. The solidified blade aura tore through space, carrying a terrifying momentum as it struck. However, facing this strike, Chu Zhetian only waved his hand casually. The blade aura instantly vanished into nothingness. Seeing this scene, everyone widened their eyes. After the shock, Miao Yuming and the other two revealed expressions of ecstasy. Yueyue's big eyes were filled with admiration. Xiao's beautiful eyes sparkled, and she no longer had any doubts about this man's strength. In contrast, the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect side, everyone looked as if they were facing a great enemy. Even Zhong Guangxiao's face was filled with a serious expression. Zhong Wanhai, who had just been rescued, had his pupils shrink as well. Boom. In the next second, Chu Zhetian's heart moved. The lid of one of the giant coffins actually opened automatically. After putting the coffin into his blood-wheel eye, Chu Zhetian was surprised to find that he could actually control them with his thoughts. Get inside the coffins. Leave the rest to me. Chu Zhetian's voice was urgent but steady. Okay. Yueyue nodded without hesitation. She didn't hesitate at all about her daddy's command. Her small body cutely tumbled over and jumped into the giant coffin. Miao Yuming and the other two hesitated slightly and then followed suit. The situation was dire right now, and there was no time to think too much. Before Yu Chaolu entered the coffin, her eyes, however, were filled with bone-chilling hatred, and she stared fixedly at Zhong Wanhai in the back of the crowd. Zhetian, if you can, I want him dead. Thinking about her sister's horrific condition in the secret chamber below, Yu Chaolu wanted nothing more than to tear Zhong Wanhai into pieces. Chu Zhetian followed her gaze, and his killing intent instantly locked onto Zhong Wanhai. Don't worry, he won't live. Yu Chaolu nodded, then said, be careful to Chu Zhetian before also entering the coffin. Boom. After the five of them got inside, Chu Zhetian's mind moved, and the coffin lids closed again. It was as if the inside and outside of the coffins had been separated into two worlds. Inside the coffin, there was peace. Outside the coffin, a bloody storm was about to be stirred up. Ha 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 ha. Boy, what do you mean by looking at me with that kind of look? Could it be that you really want to help that bitch Yu Chaolu kill me? At this moment, Zhong Wanhai, after suppressing the shock in his heart, turned to Chu Zhetian with an air of confidence. Being able to block my father's attack, it seems you also have the strength of the Golden Core stage. But just with you alone, you still want to take my head from the midst of thousands of people? Chu Zhetian didn't pay attention to Zhong Wanhai for the time being. He stood with his sword and looked coldly at Zhong Quangxiao. Are you the master of the heaven-slicing sword sect? Now, I'll give you two choices. 1. Hand over Zhong Wanhai and those who injured my daughter and the others to me for disposal, and announce that the heaven-slicing sword sect will become a vassal of the Tai Xu Sect from now on. Then, I will stop here today. 2. I will do it myself and slaughter the entire heaven-slicing sword sect. As the words fell, a chorus of angry curses rang out on the scene. The high-level warriors of the heaven-slicing sword sect, looking at Chu Zhetian's eyes, were filled with strong anger and killing intent. Too arrogant. Zhong Quangxiao was enraged to the point of laughter. Chu Zhetian, brat. What exactly gives you such confidence to make such wild claims? Today, I will grind you to ashes and avenge my daughter Zhong Wanlin. I will also take your head to establish the might of my heaven-slicing sword sect. Hearing this, a sky-filling killing intent immediately emanated from Chu Zhetian's body. In those star-like eyes, there was even a hint of excitement and longing. It seems you've chosen the second one. Indeed, you haven't disappointed me. The one who killed your daughter is Chu Zhetian. The one who annihilates the heaven-slicing sword sect is also Chu Zhetian. Chapter 82. Quickly summon the four ancestors. At this moment, Chu Zhetian felt as if a bloodthirsty seed had once again broken through the soil within his body. That longing for killing welled up again. To be honest, he was truly afraid that Zhong Quangxiao would choose the first option. But fortunately, the result didn't disappoint Chu Zhetian. Ignorant child. Die. Facing Chu Zhetian's arrogance, Zhong Quangxiao roared, and holding a treasure saber shaped like a nine-ring sword, he charged forward to kill. Whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, kill, kill, kill. At the same time, there were 7 other Golden Core stage warriors of the heaven-slicing sword sect who attacked Chu Zhetian together. Being able to reach the Golden Core level, these 7 were all elders of the sect, of the older generation. Regardless of their strength, status, or seniority, they were even above elders like Zhong Wanhai. For a moment, the terrifying aura of Golden Core experts, mixed with the shouts of killing, caused the heavens and earth to change color. Tonight's starry sky, which was originally a bright moon hanging high, but at this moment, it was shrouded in a layer of dark clouds. Good, come on. Can't I kill them? Don't be in a hurry. However, facing the encirclement of a group of golden core experts, Chu Zhetian laughed out loud. His eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light, as if there was no panic, only excitement. Clang, clang, clang. For a time, the 8 golden core experts led by Zhong Guangxiao engaged in a fierce battle with Chu Zhetian. The sound of weapons colliding was incessant. The terrifying aftermath of the battle caused others to be injured on contact and killed on touch. Quick! Get away! At this time, other, lower-level warriors of the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect all distanced themselves from this terrifying battlefield for fear of being affected by this battle, and Chu Zhetian, facing the encirclement, seemed truly unable to withstand it. He fought while also fleeing. The direction of his movement always happened to be the most densely populated areas. For a time, wherever their battle passed, it was as if a meat grinder had swept through the area. Corpses were everywhere, and cries of agony were constant. At this moment, the blood wheel eye, invisible to others, appeared again on Chu Zhetian's forehead. With the massive deaths of heaven-slicing sword sect warriors, the intensely rich essence of flesh and blood was continuously absorbed by the blood wheel eye. Feeling a stream of heat coming from within his body, Chu Zhetian's eyes grew brighter. I wonder if my body refining realm can break through again after this battle and reach the crushing mountain realm. Chu Zhetian thought secretly, and the longing for killing in his heart became even stronger. And what he didn't know was, inside the burial god blood domain, the enormously huge human face reappeared again in the crimson high sky. Hiss! The other party even enjoyed it immensely, taking a deep breath. Streams of equally rich flesh and blood essence were inhaled by the huge human face, making that face seem a bit clearer. That's right. In fact, the blood wheel eye absorbed only a small portion of the essence of flesh and blood to strengthen Chu Zhetian's devouring heaven saint body. Most of it was left within this burial god blood domain and absorbed by something inside. Boy, kill. Kill. The more you kill, the faster I can recover. The expression on the human face carried a hint of excitement and eeriness. Outside. Damn it. This boy is doing it on purpose. Everyone, use all your strength. Kill him quickly. Zhong Guangxiao's eyelids twitched violently as he saw the scene of flesh and blood flying around. His heart felt as if it was dripping blood. In this short amount of time, he had clearly seen 3 nascent pellet stage warriors and 7 Hunyuan experts of his own sect die on the spot. Some were killed by Chu Zhetian's incidental sword strike, and others were killed by the aftermath of the battle. You must know, these were all the mainstay forces of the sect, especially the nascent pellet stage warriors, who were all cultivated at a great cost. Yes, sect master. Several golden core experts responded in unison. Buzz, buzz, buzz. For a time, the spiritual energy fluctuations on the few people became even more violent. Their lower abdomen dantian even released a bright golden light. It was obvious that they were all going to use their own ultimate killing techniques. How do you know I haven't used my full strength? And Chu Zhetian's aura also surged instantly. Boom! A wave, as if an explosion, spread out in all directions. The air around his body appeared with a circle of ripples. The soaring momentum and the suffocating pressure caused everyone present to change color. What? The nascent soul realm? How is that possible? A golden core expert shouted in surprise. Feeling the aura emanating from Chu Zhetian, his own aura was so frightened that it became unstable. Why is it not possible? Chu Zhetian sneered coldly. Then he swung his sword, taking with him a fine head. This golden core stage 3 warrior was instantly killed. Nascent soul. It's actually nascent soul. Quick, summon the 4 ancestors. Today, no matter what the cost, we must get rid of this man surnamed Chu. This child must not be left alive. Zhong Guangxiao was shocked and enraged. At this moment, he finally knew why Chu Zhetian was so arrogant. Nascent soul. This boy had actually reached the nascent soul realm? How could this be possible? How did he do it? How could a Tai Xu Sect, which had been weak for hundreds of years, give rise to such a monster? With the grudges between the other party and the heaven-slicing sword sect, the consequences would be unimaginable once he grew up. Fortunately, the other party should have just broken through to the nascent soul and was not yet invincible. Today, no matter what, he must be eliminated, even if they have to use the full strength of the entire sect and pay a huge price. Thinking like this, Zhong Guangxiao did not hesitate and directly took a pill from his spatial treasure and swallowed it. It was an explosive spirit pill. Not only him, but the other 6 golden core experts also made the same reaction. Although the explosive spirit pill was precious, with the status of Zhong Guangxiao and the other few in the heaven-slicing sword sect, everyone still had one in their hands. Everyone realized that they could not let Chu Zhetian leave alive today. Boom. As it was taken, the spiritual energy in Zhong Guangxiao's body surged madly. He who had already reached the Golden Core Stage 8, his spiritual energy fluctuations were no different from that of a newly advanced nascent soul expert. The other 6 Golden Core experts also saw their strength surge. The worst could also be comparable to Golden Core Stage 7. However, seeing their reaction of a cornered dog, Chu Zhetian seemed to be unconcerned. Took drugs, did they? Then he would play with them a little longer. Since it had come to this step, he would naturally eliminate all threats. Didn't Zhong Guangxiao order someone to summon their 4 ancestors? Then he would wait for them to arrive and annihilate them all. Nascent soul. It's actually nascent soul. Kill him. Must kill him. On the other side, under a collapsed courtyard wall, Zhong Wanhai looked at Chu Zhetian's figure, and a strong look of shock appeared on his face. Whether it was intentional by Chu Zhetian, he had killed so many heaven-slicing sword sect warriors along the way, but he had not touched Zhong Wanhai's side. In the next second, the heaven-slicing sword sect's great elder, whose limbs had been crippled, his eyes suddenly fell on the 2 black coffins. That's right. This surnamed Chu Dog Thief still has a weakness. Come, open that coffin and capture Yu Chaolu and those few little mice. Zhong Wanhai shouted urgently. Hearing this, the surrounding heaven-slicing sword sect warriors also had their eyes light up. Then, they rushed towards the 2 black coffins. However, Chu Zhetian, who was entangled with Zhong Guangxiao and the others, just sneered when he heard the sound. Even the corner of his mouth curved into a cruel and cold arc. Chapter 83. Not worthy of my full power? Following Zhong Wanhai's suggestion, a group of heaven-slicing sword sect warriors rushed towards the coffins where Yueyue and the other 5 had hidden. Chu Zhetian's cultivation level had actually reached the nascent soul realm. This shocked everyone. To kill him head-on, the heaven-slicing sword sect might have to pay an extremely heavy price. But if they could seize his weakness, it should be much easier. Hey-ha! Seeing a nascent pellet realm elder rush over, he slapped the coffin lid, attempting to knock it away. However, the lid didn't budge at all. This coffin lid is so heavy? The elder widened his eyes and then pushed with all his strength. However, the result was the same. Come on, everyone, he called out, and a group of people came forward to help. However, the result was still the same. Now, the coffin was not only heavy, weighing 10 million jin, but was also controlled by Chu Zhetian. He had become the master of the burial god blood domain. Things that could generate spiritual energy, such as black coffins, once absorbed into it, were equivalent to being a member of the burial god blood domain. Now, it was like a magic weapon of Chu Zhetian's, which could be controlled by his thoughts. It was not so easy for others to open it. Smash it. I don't believe we can't capture the people inside, the elder said through gritted teeth. Boom. In the next second, he slashed a knife with all his strength on the coffin. Boom, 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 clang, clang. Other heaven-slicing sword sect warriors who rushed over also attacked the coffin. For a time, the sounds of swords and blades colliding against it were incessant, and spiritual energy fluctuations splashed everywhere. Inside the coffin, the space inside was enormous, so much so that Yueyue and the other 5, hiding inside, still felt very spacious. In addition to being very cold, It was like an extremely solid fortress. Listening to the noise outside, Yueyue blinked her big eyes in the dark. Master, what's going on outside? Won't my daddy be bullied by the bad guys? Yu Chaolu comforted. Don't worry. Your daddy is definitely fine. The bad guys outside can't deal with your daddy, so they want to deal with us. Chu Zhetian casually neutralized Zhong Guangxiao's strike, giving Yu Chaolu great confidence in him. Even if the other party were truly unable to withstand them, it would be no problem to safely retreat with the coffins. But now, the coffins were as stable as Mount Tai. Even if the people outside were attacking desperately, it seemed they couldn't break through it at all. At this time, when Miao Yumeng wanted to say something, the five of them suddenly felt the coffin move. Seeing this black coffin, after withstanding a round of attacks, suddenly soared into the air. Then, it fell heavily again. Boom. After landing, there was another scene of flesh and blood flying everywhere. The people who had been besieging the coffin were instantly smashed to death. Even the nascent pellet realm elder was turned into a puddle of flesh under the huge coffin. Ah! Retreat quickly. This damned coffin moves on its own. Can't break it at all. Accompanied by a series of screams and shouts, the people who were besieging the coffin were almost scared out of their wits, and they scattered in all directions. Chu Zhetian, who was fighting with Zhong Guangxiao and other Golden Core experts, a cold smile flashed across his face. These two giant coffins weighed 10 million jin, and even if they had no other abilities, merely smashing people with their weight were both huge killing weapons. It was just that controlling them required a large amount of mental energy. Chu Zhetian's soul was not yet strong enough, so he couldn't control them all the time. But giving these people such a deterrent was still no problem. Damn it! At this moment, Zhong Wanhai, who saw this from afar, gnashed his teeth and cursed unwillingly. Great Elder, there's probably no possibility of capturing the people from that coffin. The Horse Elder, who had carried him back when exchanging hostages earlier, also said with a gloomy face. I know, Zhong Wanhai said, and seemed to have thought of another idea, a sinister look appearing on his face. Horse Elder, let's go. Take me to the secret chamber below. Couldn't capture Yu Chaolu and those little mice? It didn't matter. Don't forget, there was Yu Chaolu's sister in the underground secret chamber. Here, on the front lines of battle. Ah! Chu Zhetian, you are a heartless and crazy demon, controlling such evil objects to massacre my heaven-slicing sword sect disciples. Today, I swear you'll be buried here. Seeing the scene of the coffins smashing a group of them from afar, a Golden Core expert who was besieging Chu Zhetian shouted in grief and anger. His voice carried bone-chilling hatred. The nascent pellet elder who died was his most proud offspring. Zhong Guangxiao and other Golden Core experts also launched even more frenzied attacks on Chu Zhetian. Since you are so grief-stricken, then go down and keep them company. Chu Zhetian snorted coldly, and the sword of the shattered void slashed with all its might towards the Golden Core expert. The other party wanted to raise his blade to meet the attack, but the blade slashed through nothing. He only felt that Chu Zhetian's sword was as unpredictable as a heavenly horse flying through the sky. Then, his vision blurred, and he felt his vision spinning constantly. Finally, it stopped on a headless corpse. He only felt that this headless corpse was so familiar. Before his consciousness disappeared, he realized that it was his own body. Buzz. At this moment, Chu Zhetian also felt a particularly violent rush of heat spreading all over his body. At this moment, his punch, relying solely on his physical body, had reached a force of 5 million jin, and this number was still continuously increasing. With the heaven-slicing sword sect suffering heavy casualties, a large amount of blood and flesh essence around him was continuously absorbed into the blood wheel eye. Chu Zhetian looked at Zhong Guangxiao and the other 5 Golden Core experts, and a hint of bloodlust and greed appeared in his star-like eyes. That's right. It was greed. Looking at them, Chu Zhetian was as if he saw nourishment for the devouring heaven-saint body. Kill! With a shout, Chu Zhetian, fighting alone, charged towards the 6 of them as if he were a tiger entering a flock of sheep. Chu Zhetian. Zhong Guangxiao roared, his eyes turning red, and he went up to meet him. To this day, the heaven-slicing sword sect had suffered heavy losses. 2 golden core experts had already died. The casualties of other sect experts were even more numerous. This caused him, the heaven-slicing sword sect master, to be on the verge of madness. After taking the explosive spirit pill, the spiritual energy fluctuations on his body were comparable to those of a newly advanced nascent soul expert. With him taking the lead to withstand Chu Zhetian, it wouldn't be so easy for the other party to kill him. The other golden core experts would then provide support, and holding on until the 4 ancestors arrived, they would definitely be able to cut Chu Zhetian under their blades. Boom, boom, boom. Next, this battle continued. Chu Zhetian still changed his location after each attack, wreaking havoc everywhere within the heaven-slicing sword sect. Each time, he led the battle to the most densely populated areas. For a time, the heaven-slicing sword sect was filled with rivers of blood. An incense stick later. Another golden core expert who was involved in the encirclement and attack of Chu Zhetian was cut in half by his sword. Why haven't the 4 ancestors come yet? Go and summon them again. Quickly. Zhong Guangxiao's eyes were split, and his tone was grief-stricken and anxious. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. At this moment, 4 sword auras carrying the power to split the heavens and earth shot over. The targets were all Chu Zhetian. The 4 ancestors have finally arrived. At this moment, Zhong Guangxiao and the others' eyes brightened, and their spirits were lifted. However, what they didn't notice was that a look of joy also appeared on Chu Zhetian's face. Finally here? I hope this time, you are worthy of my full power. Chapter 84. Open your eyes and watch carefully. Boom. The 4-blade auras landed on Chu Zhetian simultaneously, sending him flying. Immediately after, 4 extremely powerful auras rushed over rapidly. After stopping, they surrounded Chu Zhetian from 4 different directions. Ancestors. For ancestors, you've finally arrived. Watching these 4 figures, Zhong Guangxiao and the others shouted with excitement. The other heaven-slicing sword sect members, from a distance, watched the 4 ancestors with expressions of reverence. They were the most powerful beings within the heaven-slicing sword sect. They were the founding ancestors of the Zhong, Ma, Wang, and Pei clans. And at this moment, their cultivation bases, already at the peak of Golden Core Stage 9, had spiritual energy fluctuations comparable to Nascent Soul Stage 3. Obviously, they also knew that they were dealing with a newly advanced Nascent Soul cultivator this time. So the 4 of them had all taken explosive spirit pills in advance. Looking at the chaotic, brutal scene around them, as well as the corpses of heaven-slicing sword sect disciples and even high-level officials, the faces of the 4 ancestors were ashen. Their eyes looked over at the figure slowly getting back up, all revealing immense killing intent. Chu Zhetian, at this moment, was wearing tattered clothes and looked incredibly disheveled. But the skin beneath his clothes was gleaming with a lustrous metallic sheen, and in fact, he was completely unharmed. Rogue, these were all done by you? Ancestor Zhong spoke first, pointing at the carnage around him, and asked through gritted teeth. This was your sect master's choice. If he had taken the initiative to hand over Zhong Wanhai and the culprits who injured my daughter, and then had the heaven-slicing sword sect submit to the Tai Xu Sect, why would it have come to this? A cold smile appeared on Chu Zhetian's face. Hearing this, burning flames of rage erupted in the eyes of the 4 ancestors. What an arrogant brute. Do you think that because you've broken through to the nascent soul realm, you can run wild in the heaven-slicing sword sect? Ancestor Zhong said furiously. Can I not? Chu Zhetian asked in return, his attitude seeming even more arrogant. You are a disciple of the Tai Xu Sect? The Tai Xu Sect and the heaven-slicing sword sect have always coexisted peacefully over the years. Today, why are you bullying the weak and acting so insanely? Ancestor Ma also asked through gritted teeth. Hearing this, Chu Zhetian mocked. Speaking of bullying the weak, that's also what I've learned from your heaven-slicing sword sect's actions. 20 days ago, How did your Grand Elder act so aggressively in my Tai Xu Sect? How did he force my master to marry him as a concubine? And how did he boast of flattening my Tai Xu Sect? It's just that now, karmic retribution and the situation have reversed, and it's my turn to flatten the Tai Xu Sect. Upon these words, neither Zhong Guangxiao nor the four ancestors could speak for a moment. The cultivation world was originally a place where the strong preyed on the weak. When you are strong, you bully and trample others. Don't blame others if they someday return the favor 100-fold. Everyone, this person's hands are stained with the blood of my heaven-slicing sword sect disciples. Today, it is a life or death situation. There's no point in reasoning. Kill him quickly, Zhong Guangxiao said through gritted teeth. That's right. I didn't intend to reason either. Kill. Chu Zhetian nodded and took the initiative to attack despite being surrounded. Arrogant. If you had been comprehending in the nascent soul realm for many years, we might have had some fear of you. But you have clearly just advanced to the nascent soul realm and certainly haven't grasped even the slightest bit of the heavenly Tao principles. You haven't mastered the true methods of a nascent soul powerhouse. Today, I'll see how you can survive and how you can flatten my Tai Xu Sect, Ancestor Zhong said with murderous intent. The other three ancestors, as well as Zhong Guangxiao and several Golden Core experts, felt that these words hit the point. That's right. The truly terrifying aspect of the nascent soul realm was that they could travel in the spiritual world and comprehend the heavenly Tao principles. And then, during offense and defense, they would incorporate the power of the Tao principles. And Chu Zhetian had obviously just broken through to the nascent soul realm and certainly hadn't mastered such methods. He would inevitably fall in the end, facing the encirclement of the many people. Ha 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 ha. Is that so? Then watch carefully. However, Chu Zhetian let out a thunderous laugh. Buzz. In the next second, a brilliant golden light suddenly erupted from his body. A golden bell, formed from spiritual energy, looking like a solid object and shining with a metallic sheen, suddenly appeared on his body. A divine ability, the immortal golden bell. Clang, 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 clang. For a time, the attacks of the crowd landed on the golden bell and immediately emitted a series of sounds of metal clashing. The terrifying aftershocks of the attacks distorted the surrounding space. But they couldn't break the golden bell's defenses. What? Divine ability? A divine ability imbued with the power of the Tao principles? How is that possible? He has actually comprehended the power of the Tao principles? Seeing this scene, the four ancestors' pupils shrank. Zhong Guangxiao and the others were even more shocked. It was at this moment that they realized that Chu Zhetian had hidden his strength before. You can't even break my defenses. How can you kill me? Chu Zhetian asked. As the words fell, he once again killed a Golden Core expert with a single sword strike. Ding! Finally, the sword of the Shattered Void also broke into pieces after this strike. Even without using it to perform a divine ability, this Earth-grade treasure sword couldn't withstand this high-intensity battle anymore. Nascent Soul. A true nascent soul powerhouse. A nascent soul powerhouse who has comprehended the power of the Tao principles. It's over. It's over, ah. My heaven-slicing sword sect is really going to be finished? At this moment, after Chu Zhetian had used the immortal Golden Bell divine ability, the eyes of Ancestor Ma clearly showed a trace of despair. He muttered to himself, "Everyone, we have no choice now. Quick, form the heavenly sword slaughter formation and kill him at all costs." Ancestor Zhong shouted wildly. Hearing this, everyone's faces became stern. Then, they all revealed expressions of determination. Besides the four ancestors at the peak of Golden Core Stage 9, the greatest trump card of the heaven-slicing sword sect was this heavenly sword slaughter formation. But the cost of using the formation was immensely high, even capable of directly exhausting a Golden Core expert. It would not be used until the sect was at a critical moment of life and death. And now, it seemed to be that moment. Next, the Golden Core experts present, in the blink of an eye, formed an offensive and defensive formation. The formation at a glance looked like a sword. The tip of the sword was, in fact, Ancestor Zhong. Whoosh! Next, they all swung their swords towards Chu Zhetian at the same time. This strike concentrated all their spiritual energy, forming a blade aura shaped like a crescent moon. The blade aura carried the power to destroy the heavens and earth, as well as a cold and eerie light, locked onto Chu Zhetian's aura with deadly precision and slashed towards him. Seeing this strike, a boundless fighting spirit ignited in Chu Zhetian's eyes. He punched towards the blade aura, and a 5-clawed golden dragon, wrapped in chains, appeared on his right arm. It was using his arm as a sword, using the offensive divine ability, imprisoning dragon, breaking chains. Roar! Accompanied by a dragon roar, the 5-clawed golden dragon broke its chains and roared, crashing towards the blade aura. Chapter 85. Body Refining Breakthrough, Golden Body and Jade Bones. Boom! Imprisoning dragon, breaking chains, and the crescent moon blade aura collided fiercely. Both were instantly shattered. The terrifying aftershocks of the collision instantly leveled everything within 1,000 meters. At the same time, several figures were sent flying backwards. They were the Golden Core experts who made up the Heavenly Sword Slaughter formation. Among them, even included the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect Master, Zhong Xiao. Even the 4 ancestors, after the blade aura shattered, vomited blood and staggered backward. Puff, puff, puff. The others fell to the ground like dumplings. There was even a Golden Core expert who, because of using the Heavenly Sword Slaughter formation, had his spiritual energy drained and died directly under these terrifying aftershocks. Zhong Xiao and the other 3, surviving Golden Core experts, although still alive, were also exhausted of spiritual energy and lost their combat power. Offensive Divine Ability. An offensive divine ability containing sword principles. How is it possible? How could a young powerhouse who had just broken through to the nascent soul realm have mastered the power of the Tao principles? We can't win. We can't win at all. At this moment, Ancestor Ma vomited a mouthful of blood and said with a pale face, "His defense is impregnable, and his attack is also invincible." Ancestors Wang and Pei finally revealed a look of despair as well. The immortal golden bell that enveloped Chu Zhetian's body meant that they couldn't even break the other party's defenses, and the other party's offensive divine ability could easily annihilate their greatest trump card. How could they possibly fight this battle? Could it be that heaven is going to destroy my heaven-slicing sword sect? A look of grief appeared on Ancestor Zhong's face. Just at this moment, Chu Zhetian picked up a treasure blade from the ground, one that had been dropped when someone was knocked away. Next, he raised his blade and struck. A Golden Core expert whose spiritual energy had been exhausted was directly beheaded. No. Stop. Don't kill anymore. The Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect admits defeat. Ancestor Ma shouted in sorrow. You say kill, then kill, and say don't kill, then don't kill? Chu Zhetian asked with a cold smile, his eyes filled with intense bloodthirsty light. Saying that, he continued to walk towards the next Golden Core expert with his blade. Seeing this, the 4 ancestors exchanged glances. Chu Zhetian, stop. Today's matter, my Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect admits defeat. How about we stop here? You've killed so many people from my Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect. We won't pursue it. Stop now. Ancestor Wang shouted urgently. Now is not about whether you pursue it or not. It is about me flattening the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect. Having become enemies and formed a mortal feud, I must eradicate the roots and spare no one. Chu Zhetian said incredibly coldly. His whole person was like a god of slaughter. If you don't stop, we will risk self-exploding our golden cores today and make you accompany us in death. Ancestor Zhong's face turned crazy. Hearing this, Chu Zhetian sneered, not being moved at all. Buzz. However, in the next second, just as he was about to raise the butcher's knife again, a violent fluctuation suddenly appeared on his body. At this moment, Chu Zhetian seemed to have turned into a star, releasing an incredibly dazzling light. It even illuminated his entire body, inside and out, so that he was incredibly transparent. His skin was like metal, shimmering with a textured luster. The bones in his body were as smooth as jade and incredibly lustrous. A barbaric aura emanated. It was an aura that came purely from the physical body. Finally, Chu Zhetian, who had been killing in the heaven-slicing sword sect today, had his body-refining realm break through again at this moment. He reached the crushing mountain realm. Upon entering this realm, besides the explosive increase in physical strength, the most significant mark was the jadification of the entire body's bones and the development of bone power. This jadification was not as fragile and easily broken as ordinary jade stones, but was incredibly tough. Each jade bone was comparable to a heavenly grade superior divine weapon. In addition, the physical body divine ability, Jade Bone Golden Body, would automatically awaken. Once this divine ability was used, the bone power generated by the physical body would penetrate the bones and be contained in the muscles, skin, and fascia, thus greatly enhancing offensive and defensive power. It was as if they were enveloped in a layer of bone armor, thus turning the body into a weapon. They could completely rely on the physical body to go head-to-head with divine weapons below the celestial grade. Sure enough, my physical body broke through. Feeling a terrifying power, as if added into his bones, a smile of enjoyment appeared on Chu Zhetian's face. And just as he was feeling the physical body's transformation and adapting to the new power, the four ancestors of the heaven-slicing sword sect did not attack him in the meantime. Instead, they were all stunned there. He broke through. Ancestor Ma's face twitched, and after regaining his senses, it was an even more complete despair. The physical body broke through. He is not only a nascent soul powerhouse, but also a legendary body-refining expert. Jade Bone Golden Body. Is this the body-refining, crushing mountain realm? Ancestor Pei's voice trembled. Why? Why did the Tai Xu Sect give rise to such a peerless monster? Why did my heaven-slicing sword sect, by some bad luck, provoke the other party? A nascent soul powerhouse who has mastered the Tao principles, plus the body-refining crushing mountain realm. How can we resist? Ancestor Pei wailed. No. The heaven-slicing sword sect must not be destroyed. Even if we pay a great price, we absolutely cannot be destroyed at the hands of you and me. Otherwise, how can we account to our ancestors? At this moment, the expression on Ancestor Zhong's face became even more frantic and resolute. Old Zhong, what are you going to do? Do you think that we can kill him by self-exploding our golden cores? Can't kill him. Absolutely can't kill him. Ancestor Ma said with a face full of despair. Chu Zhetian's breakthrough in the body-refining realm in the face of battle had completely shattered the minds of the four heaven-slicing sword sect ancestors, and they were completely demoralized. Zhong Xiao and the other three golden core experts also revealed expressions of despair. In the next second, the light on Chu Zhetian's body converged. Then, he continued like a god of death, selecting the next target to be killed. This time, he moved towards Zhong Xiao, the heaven-slicing sword sect master. Don't kill anymore. Chu Senior, please show mercy. The heaven-slicing sword sect kneels. The few ancestors all pleaded out loud. At this moment, they were completely broken in spirit. Chu Zhetian, now I choose the first option. Is it still in time? Zhong Xiao asked with a miserable smile. At this time, he was already depleted of spiritual energy and seriously injured. Facing Chu Zhetian, he was no different from a lamb awaiting slaughter. It's too late. I still like your arrogant and untamed manner at first. Chu Zhetian's tone was cold, and his killing intent was immense. At this moment, his heart had only one thought: kill. Especially when he felt the blood wheel continuously absorbing the essence of flesh and blood. He couldn't stop and didn't want to stop. However, at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Accompanied by the sound of a blade piercing flesh, Ancestor Zhong suddenly made a move. It was just that the target of his attack was not Chu Zhetian. Instead, His own sect master, Zhong Quangxiao. Chapter 86. Cleaning up the sect. Ancestor Zhong raised his blade and struck, and Zhong Quangxiao's head rolled directly to the ground. Warm blood splattered all over his face. This startled Chu Zhetian, and he revealed a look of astonishment. So much so, the increasingly frantic killing intent in his heart seemed to falter. The heaven-slicing sword sect cannot die. Even if we pay the greatest price, we must preserve the sect. Ancestor Zhong still muttered in his mouth as if he had lost his mind. In the next second, he walked over to Zhong Quangxiao's head and picked it up. The heaven-slicing sword sect master, even in death, had his eyes wide open. His face was covered with disbelief. Quangxiao grandson, don't blame your great ancestor. Your great ancestor is also for the sake of the entire sect? Ancestor Zhong seemed to be talking to himself, and also seemed to be explaining to Zhong Quangxiao's head. Plop. In the next second, the heaven-slicing sword sect ancestor actually held Zhong Quangxiao's head and knelt on one knee before Chu Zhetian. Zhong Zhetian represents the heaven-slicing sword sect and apologizes to Senior Chu. To show our sincerity, we offer Zhong Quangxiao's head. We hope that Senior Chu will not pursue us to the end, leave my heaven-slicing sword sect away to survive, so that the heaven-slicing sword sect can serve Senior Chu and the Tai Xu Sect in the future, like dogs and horses. Seeing Zhong Zhetian, or rather Ancestor Zhong's actions, everyone was stunned. No one had expected that the madness he displayed was actually to kill Zhong Quangxiao with his own hands to apologize to Chu Zhetian. However, after the shock, Ancestor Ma, Pei and Wang, the three ancestors, all knelt on one knee before Chu Zhetian. We hope Senior Chu will show mercy. From now on, the heaven-slicing sword sect will only follow Senior Chu's lead. Seeing their ancestors like this, the three Golden Core experts who had survived, and all the disciples and high-level officials of the heaven-slicing sword sect, were shocked beyond measure. But no one dared to question them. Chu Zhetian, watching the heaven-slicing sword sect ancestor kneeling before him, holding Zhong Quangxiao's head, the expression on his face changed several times. He hadn't expected that the other party would submit to him in this way. Chu Zhetian. At this moment, a furious shout, filled with gritted teeth, suddenly sounded. Looking in the direction of the sound, Zhong Wanhai, who had disappeared for a long time, had reappeared. Because his limbs had been broken, the other party was lying on the back of the horse elder and was staring at Chu Zhetian with incredibly resentful and smug eyes. He hadn't even noticed that the four ancestors were kneeling on the ground. Beside him and the horse elder, two heaven-slicing sword sect disciples were holding a woman with disheveled hair. The woman's hands and feet were limp, and she made a vague woo-woo sound. If it wasn't Yu-Chaolu's sister, Xianxia, then who else could it be? You dog thief surnamed Chu. Look who this is. This is Yu-Chaolu's sister, that bitch, and also your senior sister. If you don't want her to die, just obediently surrender. Zhong Wanhai, as if he had again grasped Chu Zhetian's handle, said with a sneer. Chu Zhetian turned his head and frowned slightly. He had had no interaction with Xianxia in his previous or current lives. But after all, she was Chaolu's sister. And he knew that Xiaolu had a deep affection for this sister. If the other party died, it would be difficult for him to explain. I'll see your sincerity. Thinking like this, he suppressed the killing intent in his heart and spoke softly to the four heaven-slicing sword sect ancestors. Whoosh! As the words fell, Ancestor Ma turned into a streak of light and rushed towards the direction of Zhong Wanhai and the others. Ancestor! Great ancestor! Seeing the other party, the still oblivious Zhong Wanhai and horse elder were both stunned, then spoke with respect. Hand the person over to me. Ancestor Ma spoke lightly. Hurry and hand this bitch over to the ancestor? Zhong Wanhai, seeing that the sect ancestor had come forward, immediately scolded the two disciples. The two disciples naturally didn't say anything and handed Xianxia to Ancestor Ma. Boom. The moment he got the person, Ancestor Ma waved his hand and directly knocked Zhong Wanhai and the others away. Puff. After landing, Zhong Wanhai spat out a mouthful of blood and widened his eyes, Ancestor, you are? Whoosh. Ancestor Ma ignored him, went straight to Xianxia, and came to Chu Zhetian, and knelt on one knee again. Senior Chu, I have rescued your senior sister. Please, Senior, show mercy to the heaven-slicing sword sect. Ancestor Zhong, seeing Xianxia tortured into this inhuman and ghostly state, immediately realized something. In the next second, he looked grimly at Zhong Wanhai and said through gritted teeth, Senior Chu, I also didn't expect that Zhong Wanhai, this beast, would do such an inhumane act to his own wife. As far as I know, the grudges between you and the heaven-slicing sword sect are, in the final analysis, because of Zhong Guangxiao and Zhong Wanhai's line. Now, Zhong Guangxiao has been cleared from the sect by me. I will now also tear Zhong Wanhai into pieces to vent your anger. In addition, I guarantee that their line will also be wiped out afterward. Whoosh. As the words fell, Ancestor Zhong made a move towards Zhong Wanhai. At this moment, Zhong Wanhai was completely stunned. What exactly was happening? His own ancestor actually knelt down to Chu Zhetian? And what was that head? Wasn't that his father's head? Wait, you don't need you to kill him. But at this moment, Chu Zhetian shouted coldly and punched Ancestor Zhong away directly. Then, with a hint of grimness and ill intent, he stared at Zhong Wanhai. Thinking about Xiaolu's previous, bone-chilling hatred towards this heaven-slicing sword sect great elder, Chu Zhetian felt that Xiaolu should personally tear the other party to pieces. An hour later, the entire heaven-slicing sword sect still lingered with a rich smell of blood. On a square, the heaven-slicing sword sect Zhong and Wang ancestors were standing on either side, and Yu Xiaolu and Yu Xiaoxia sisters were sitting in a high position. At this moment, the former was supporting the latter, her face still showing a deep sense of heartache. Beside them was a strong, handsome young man. The young man's eyes, looking at Yu Xiaoxia, were even more heartbreaking. In addition, there was also a strong sense of closeness, attachment, and reverence. The young man was Yu Xiaoxia's only son with Zhong Wanhai, Zhong Yingxiu. Under the high platform, there were as many as 100 or so people kneeling. The leader was Zhong Wanhai. As for the others, they were all Zhong clan descendants from his line. Mother, why have you become like this? Zhong Yingxiu knelt on the ground, holding Yu Xiaoxia's hand with tears streaming down his face. The mother's hands and feet were crippled, and her tongue was cut. As a son, it could be imagined how sad and indignant he was. And the most difficult thing for him to accept was that all this was done by his beastly father. Whoosh! In the next second, Zhong Yingxiu stood up suddenly, pulled out the long blade from his waist, and rushed towards Zhong Wanhai with red eyes. Zhong Wanhai, I'll kill you. Wicked son, I am your father. As the words fell, Zhong Wanhai's head had already soared into the sky. Kill them all. At this moment, Yu Xiaolu exchanged a look with her sister, and then waved her hand and said, Kill. Ancestor Zhong gritted his teeth and ruthlessly uttered a word. For a time, heads rolled. From today onwards, Zhong Yingxiu will be the new sect master of the heaven-slicing sword sect. Yu Xiaoxia will be the sect's mistress. My heaven-slicing sword sect, from now on, will nominally submit to the Tai Xu Sect, and the specific actions will only follow Senior Chu Zhetian's lead. A high-pitched voice, carrying a hint of desolation after a great calamity, resounded over the square, and at this time, Chu Zhetian had already left. After the 4 ancestors of the heaven-slicing sword sect had sworn a poisonous oath to the opening heaven sword left by their founding ancestor, they safely left Yu Xiaolu and Yueyue and the others temporarily in the heaven-slicing sword sect. Because that poison oath, like the Tai Xu sect's return to the void battle, would be recognized by the will of heaven. Once violated, the will of heaven would directly wipe out the entire heaven-slicing sword sect. Under the night, Chu Zhetian was once again traveling day and night, riding the flying puppet, returning to the Tai Xu sect without stopping. He was also followed by the heaven-slicing sword sect's Ma and Pei ancestors. Although the heaven-slicing sword sect had sealed off the news, and even strictly forbidden anyone from leaving the sect. But no one could guarantee whether what had happened here had leaked any information, even reached the Tai Xu Sect. If by Chang'e and Ji Inlian knew that he wasn't dead, and had even broken through to the nascent soul realm, would they jump the wall in desperation? Therefore, he must return in the shortest amount of time, to nip all crises in the bud. Chapter 87. The Little Girl Playing with Her Belly Button. Above the night sky, Chu Zhetian and the two heaven-slicing sword sect ancestors, Manhwa and Xianxia, were riding the flying puppet together. Before it was activated, this flying puppet was only the size of a palm. But at this moment, its wingspan was more than 20 meters. The space inside the bird's belly was comparable to a wooden house. Manhwa and Xianxia, the two ancestors of the Ma and Pei clans, were sitting cross-legged on the ground. Chu Zhetian sat behind the two of them, his palm placed on their pohu acupoints. Previously, the two had taken explosive spirit pills, raising their strength to a level comparable to the nascent soul realm, but the side effect was that their spiritual energy was completely consumed. In addition, they were also injured when facing Chu Zhetian. So, their faces were incredibly pale. They looked weak and exhausted. But at this moment, streams of pure spiritual energy, flowing along Chu Zhetian's palm, entered their bodies, making their faces visibly rosier. The myriad transformation spiritual energy, refined by Chu Zhetian, after entering the two bodies, quickly filled their dry meridians and dantians. By the way, it also smoothed out the injuries of the two. 15 minutes later, Manhwa and Xianxia stood up, looking energetic. In their eyes, besides the original wariness and reverence, there also appeared a hint of admiration and fanaticism. I really didn't expect that Senior Chu would have such miraculous abilities. Manhwa sighed sincerely. Yes, your spiritual energy can not only replenish our losses, but also heal our injuries. It seems that following Senior Chu in the future, we don't have to be afraid of getting hurt. Xianxia also threw a compliment. His manner and words were full of respect and admiration for Chu Zhetian. Regardless of whether you are sincere or fake in submitting to me, you will slowly know in the future that the decision you made tonight was incredibly wise. Following me will be the most correct decision of your life. For the two's compliments, Chu Zhetian didn't feel anything special. No modesty, no pride. Instead, he said very calmly, as if stating a fact. Manhwa and Xianxia, upon hearing this, immediately agreed. For some reason, the two felt that Chu Zhetian in front of them had an indescribable bearing. The confidence and domineering aura that emanated from his words made them feel convinced. A nascent soul powerhouse under 30, and one who had mastered the power of the Tao principles, plus a monster whose body refining had reached the crushing mountain realm. How far his cultivation path could go in the future was really immeasurable. Perhaps, following him, they, including the heaven-slicing sword sect, might really be able to achieve some kind of glory. But in any case, they didn't dare to have any second thoughts about Chu Zhetian anymore, because they had already made the heavenly sword oath, and had been recognized by the will of heaven. They must, from now on, follow Chu Zhetian's lead. This was also the reason why Chu Zhetian was willing to restore their spiritual energy and heal their injuries. On the other side, that night, Chu Zhetian and the three of them had already left for 2 hours. The execution ceremony and the appointment of the new heaven-slicing sword sect master had also ended. Yu Chaolu stayed with her sister and her nephew Zhongying for a while, and estimating that the time was about right, she returned to a courtyard prepared for her by the heaven-slicing sword sect. Master! Master, you're back? Master, is everything taken care of? Miao Yuming and the other two were still awake, and immediately greeted her. At this moment, they still had a lingering feeling of fear. Tonight's events had taken many unexpected turns, and Miao Yuming and the other two hadn't expected such an ending. Junior brother Chu had forced the heaven-slicing sword sect to its knees, forcing their ancestor to kill their own sect master. And even to quell the hatred, he had killed off Zhong Guangxiao and Zhong Wanhai's line. It wasn't that the three of them were uncultured, but they felt that there was nothing else to describe junior brother Chu other than the words, amazing. The turmoil at the heaven-slicing sword sect is finally settled. Yu Chaolu nodded, and a hint of emotion seemed to be mixed in her tone. To be honest, she hadn't expected Zhetian to be so heaven-defying. Grandmaster, you're back? At this moment, Yeye's soft and milky voice rang out. Looking in the direction of the sound, the little guy had actually lifted her own clothes, revealing her soft little belly. Her small hands were restlessly picking at her cute belly button. Perhaps only this little guy hadn't been surprised at all that her daddy had subdued the bad guys. In Yeye's heart, her daddy was omnipotent. Yeye, what are you doing? Quickly cover your belly. Children shouldn't play with their belly buttons, or your stomach will hurt. Although she hadn't taken care of children, Yu Chaolu still knew some common sense. At this moment, with a straight face, she scolded Yeye. Daddy put a bug into Yeye's belly button before he left. I want to pick it out and see. Yeye explained with a pout. That's right, before leaving, Chu Zhetian had already used the life-sharing golden cicada curse and implanted it respectively in his own and Yeye's bodies at the navel wheel location. That was the location of the human body's innate vital energy and life source. From then on, the two of them, father and daughter, would truly be linked by fate. As long as Chu Zhetian didn't die, Yeye could also live well. It was just that although he told Yeye that the bug was good for her, the latter was, after all, a child's nature. Seeing a bug crawl into her own belly button, Yeye felt a little uneasy, plus that curiosity. So, sitting there she picked at her little belly button. Hearing this, Yu Chaolu was both amused and annoyed. Chu Zhetian had also told her about the life-sharing golden cicada curse, so Yu Chaolu naturally knew what was going on. Go to sleep obediently, and don't pick at it again. That bug is your daddy's avatar. If you pick it to death, your daddy will be in danger. Yu Chaolu said, both angry and amused. Sometimes, you have to scare a child a little to get them to behave. Sure enough, hearing this, Yeye immediately moved her hand away from her belly button and also put her clothes down obediently. Her cute little head shook like a rattle drum. Not picking, not picking. Yeye doesn't want daddy to be in danger. Seeing this scene, Yu Chaolu and Miao Yuming and the other two were instantly amused. After a moment, after coaxing Yeye to sleep, a look of sharpness appeared in Yu Chaolu's beautiful eyes. The heaven-slicing sword sect has settled, but Zhetian still has to deal with the Tai Xu Sect's troubles. The time is about right. I can help him pass on a message to Bai Changqing and Jianlian. In the next second, she waved her sleeve, and a spiritual pigeon appeared in her hand. She didn't raise this spiritual pigeon herself, but obtained it from a female disciple who was married there. The other wedding attendants had already left the heaven-slicing sword sect, but a few accompanying female disciples hadn't left. If Yu Chaolu were to really marry Zhong Wanhai as a concubine, then they would also stay behind to take care of Yu Chaolu in the future. And one of these female disciples was, in fact, a person of Ji Yinlian, the fourth Taishang. This spiritual pigeon was her way of sending messages to Ji Yinlian. The spiritual pigeon will set off now and will arrive at the Tai Xu Sect tomorrow morning. By then, Zhetian should have already arranged everything. Let the news here alert the snake, and then lure the snake out of the hole. Chapter 88. The snake is utterly alarmed. The next day, early morning, at the evergreen courtyard, whoosh, Bai Changqing, who had been cultivating all night, suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a hint of shock and fear. His whole person was breathing rapidly. After calming down for a while, he knitted his eyebrows. For some reason, he had been feeling uneasy these days. Last night, he had performed another deduction. In the image he had deduced, he clearly saw a huge hand that blotted out the sky. That hand descended from the sky and enveloped him. He stood there, looking up, but could not see any light, only feeling as if he was shrouded by the god of death. And last night, when he was cultivating, his mind was also full of chaos. In the early hours of the morning, he fell into a drowsy sleep. In his dream, that hand that blotted out the sky appeared again. Before this hand, he felt as hopeless as an ant. Everything, it seemed, would be crushed by this hand. Damn it, why did I deduce this scene? Hand blotting the sky. Could it be Chu Zhetian? Bai Changqing's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his heart was filled with alarm and doubt. Thinking like this, he shook his head again and said to himself, "Impossible! Absolutely impossible! Chu Zhetian must already be dead." Just then, his ears suddenly twitched. Someone had arrived at the evergreen courtyard. After a moment, Bai Changqing came to the living room, and his face immediately became stern. He saw that Ji Inlian had arrived, sitting there with a solemn and gloomy expression. "Inlian, why are you here? Is something the matter?" Bai Changqing, seeing that the other party's expression was not right, felt his heart skip a beat. Chu Zhetian isn't dead. In the next second, Ji Inlian spat out this ominous news from between her teeth. "What? Chu Zhetian isn't dead? Is this news certain?" Bai Changqing's face changed drastically, and he said with disbelief. Hearing this news, a strong sense of unease surged in his heart. When Chu Zhetian had left the sect, he had only been a Hunyuan expert, but for some reason, Bai Changqing felt that the other party's threat was greater than that of the sect master and the few great elders. And then, the news Ji Inlian spoke next was even more earth-shattering. It also proved that Bai Changqing's unease was correct. Absolutely certain. Not only is this person not dead, but his strength has also reached the peak of Golden Core Stage 9. Last night, he unexpectedly broke into the heaven-slicing sword sect and, with Yu Chaolu, flew away. He should be on his way back to the sect by now. Ji Inlian nodded and continued to throw a few bombshells at Bai Changqing. Next, she told Bai Changqing all the details brought by the spiritual pigeon. After listening, Bai Changqing's entire body was trembling slightly. A trace of panic was clearly visible in his eyes. Why could Chu Zhetian be so monstrous? How much time had passed, and he had actually reached the peak of Golden Core Stage 9, becoming a cultivator on the same level as me. Those wastes of the heaven-slicing sword sect didn't manage to kill him. Damn it! Damn it! If I had known this, I should have killed him without hesitation as soon as he came out of the blood-prison demonic pit. Bai Changqing was completely devoid of his usual composure. Ji Inlian's expression was also extremely serious. However, what they didn't know was that the spiritual pigeon was actually carrying false news sent to them by Yu Chaolu. How could Chu Zhetian's strength be only at the peak of Golden Core Stage 9? And how could he have flown away with Yu Chaolu? He had clearly destroyed the heaven-slicing sword sect and forced the four ancestors to their knees and begging for mercy. If Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian knew the truth, who knows how shocked they would be. It's too late to regret not killing him now. What should we do first and foremost? Or, should we turn over a new leaf? From now on, wholeheartedly be our sect's great elder? Ji Inlian swallowed her saliva at this moment, and she was already starting to back down. Hearing this, Bai Changqing laughed. Looking at her, he laughed incredibly mockingly and disdainfully. Ji Inlian, your stance is always so indecisive, whether it's about feelings or the major events you conspired with me. Turn over a new leaf? Ha 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 ha. How do we turn over a new leaf? We have targeted Chu Zhetian many times. Do you think he doesn't know? The ambush of 3 nascent pellet great witches in Golden Rainbow City. Would he not understand who arranged it? And don't forget, I also imprisoned his daughter some time ago. And you used the soul-searching technique, and you turned Zhang Dalai into an idiot. Wouldn't Chu Zhetian seek revenge? In addition, how do we explain things to the Dark Knight Palace? Would those evil cultivators let us go? Would that evil ancestor of the Dark Knight Palace let us go? Bai Changqing questioned in rapid succession. Ji Inlian's eyes flickered uncertainly. She also knew that she and Bai Changqing had no way back. Then, for now, we can only launch an attack immediately, and it's even too late to let the Dark Knight Palace cooperate. Chu Zhetian is on his way back to the sect. Once he returns, we might be exposed directly. At that time, facing Chu Zhetian, Yu Shuihan, and other great elders, we will have no chance of winning. Bai Changqing pondered for a long time, and then nodded slowly. That's right. We can only go all out and settle everything before Chu Zhetian returns to the sect. Our advantage now is that Yueyue Han and the other great elders are still in the dark. You and I are originally the two strongest people in the Tai Xu Sect. Plus, with our planning and their lack of it, in a 2-on-1 situation, we can completely deal with Yueyue Han and the others separately. Killing them, then no one will be able to stop us from refining the sect's spiritual vein. As long as we break through to the nascent soul, everything will be completely under our control. Even if Chu Zhetian comes back, we can still kill him. Xianxia nodded. Although this is a bit risky, there is no other way. The original plan of the two was to unite with the Dark Knight Palace and completely overthrow the Tai Xu Sect. That was undoubtedly more secure. But now, facing the pressure brought by Chu Zhetian, they could only choose to take a risk. A decapitation operation, targeting Yueyue Han and other great elders. To be on the safe side, we still need to arrange something. It's just a pity that the little demon seed slipped away secretly, and Zhang Dalai was also taken away from the sect. But fortunately, Chu Zhetian has a son, and that Su family has also returned from Lonely Smoke City. I don't believe that Chu Zhetian would really not care about the lives and deaths of them and his son, especially that son, with their 5 years of feelings. Bai Changqing narrowed his eyes, and a hint of cunning and treacherousness appeared. Chapter 89. Peak Master Su, can you run away? This morning, a portion of the high-level officials and strong cultivators within the Tai Xu Sect all received transmission jade slips. Among them were Ji Wuji, one of the 4 deputy sect masters, the deputy peak masters of the Xuanwu Peak, Qinglong Peak, Zhuke, Gaochen, and Tangsha Peaks, and other internal traders from the Su, Bai, Yu, and Ji clans. Many of these people held deputy positions in various organizations of the sect. They felt underappreciated, but in reality, they were simply greedy. These people were the accomplices of Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian. At the same time, a wedding procession had just returned to the sect. They had left the Heaven-Slicing Sword sect the previous afternoon and returned to the Tai Xu Sect early this morning. Within the wedding procession, Bai Pengkuan, the acting peak master of the White Tiger Peak, and Bai Hengqiu, one of the deputy sect masters, presented their transmission jade slips simultaneously. Then, they exchanged a glance. Coming to a place where no one was around, both of them revealed expressions of shock and caution. Great Ancestor and 4th Taishang, are they really going to act so quickly? Bai Pengkuan lowered his voice. Yes, and gave me a task. Bai Hengqiu narrowed his eyes showing both tension and anticipation. Because Bai Changqing had promised him that after the plan succeeded, he would promote him further and take Yueyue Han's position. Also gave me a task. Bai Pengkuan's expression became stern. All right, there is no need to say more between you and I. Follow the orders. Bai Hengqiu waved his hand. Yes. Bai Pengkuan nodded and didn't ask any further what task Bai Hengqiu had received. A moment later, the Chuebin courtyard. This was the place the sect used to teach young children. Inside a courtyard used for 4 to 5-year-old children to learn, the instructor hadn't arrived yet, and a group of young children, having come over early in the morning, were playing and frolicking there. And Chu Kongqing's way of playing was to lead a group of small lackeys to bully a small grandson of an outer sect elder. After beating the other party to a pulp, Chu Kongqing went over, stepped on the small boy's head, and searched a small cloth bag from his body. Inside were a dozen or so spirit jades. A lowborn brat from an outer sect is also worthy of enjoying spirit jades? Haha, these are all mine. Chu Kongqing put the spirit jades into his interspatial pouch. His childish face was filled with arrogance and domineering behavior. In a corner of the courtyard, Zhang Beichen was sitting and watching this scene. However, he didn't have the slightest intention of stopping Chu Kongqing, and instead, his face was filled with gratification and praise. These days, as long as he was in the sect, he would personally send Chu Kongqing to the Chuebin courtyard every day. He was even more attentive to his son than Su Ruoyan, the biological mother. Because Zhang Beichen knew that although Kongqing was called Chu Kongqing, he should actually be surnamed Zhang. Kongqing is great. The cultivation world is originally a place where the strong prey on the weak, and many opportunities must be obtained through fighting and seizing. My Chang'e has had this awareness since childhood, and in the future, he will definitely be able to become a top powerhouse. Zhang Beichen walked over and praised, stroking Chu Kongqing's head. Chu Kongqing smiled proudly and said to Zhang Beichen, "Godfather, you're so good. My real father used to scold, or even beat and scold me, when he saw me bullying others. Godfather is still good to me. I wish you were my real father." Because he had been influenced by Su Ruoyan since childhood, and because of Zhang Beichen's extraordinary favor and indulgence, Chu Kongqing was particularly close to this godfather. "Then you can stop calling me godfather from now on. Just call me father, how about it?" Zhang Beichen asked expectantly. "Okay, father." Chu Kongqing was not resistant at all, and directly called out, "I." Zhang Beichen agreed with great satisfaction. Looking at Chu Kongqing, who was incredibly close to him, he felt a sense of blood connection. "Kongqing, I am your real father. In a short time, you can openly acknowledge me." That low-born Chu Zhetian had disappeared for more than half a month, and had certainly died in Golden Rainbow City. Ha ha ha. After a while, I will officially marry Sister Ruoyan, and we will be a family of 3. Zhang Beichen was incredibly eager for all of this. Although he was cunning and insidious, he truly cherished and loved Chu Kongqing, his son. He was an orphan since childhood, and when he thought that his bloodline had a continuation and inheritance, he felt an indescribable sense of happiness. And just as he and Chu Kongqing were enjoying themselves, a low voice sounded. "Chief Zhang, hope all is well? I have something to ask you. Come to the White Tiger Peak with me. How about it? Right, take Kongqing with you. My little granddaughter has been clamoring to play with him." Looking in the direction of the sound, Bai Penghuan walked in with a smile. It seemed incredibly enthusiastic. At the same time, Qinglong Peak, Peak Master's Mansion. "Ruoyan, you haven't broken through to the innate realm yet?" Su Hongtu blew on the steaming spirit tea in his hand and asked his eldest daughter with a frown. "Not yet." Su Ruoyan shook her head, also feeling somewhat discouraged. She and her father, along with Zhang Beichen, had only been stationed in Golden Smoke City for a little over 10 days, and then they returned to the sect. After all, Su Hongtu was a peak master, and it wasn't good for him to always be outside, neglecting the peak's affairs. Now, the few direct disciples were guarding Golden Smoke City. "I originally thought that going to Golden Smoke City would be a kind of experience for you, and might change your state of mind, and thus break through to the innate realm. It seems we still can't rush it." Su Hongtu took a sip of tea. Hearing this, Su Ruoyan snorted secretly. What state of mind was there to change? Thinking about how her sister Su Ruoyan had broken through with the help of that dog of a man, Chu Zhetian, her state of mind had never been stable. And now, she heard that Chu Zhetian had encountered 3 Golden Core Realm Great Witches in Golden Rainbow City, and his life and death were unknown. Was he dead? For some reason, Su Ruoyan felt a little empty inside when she thought of this possibility. Of course, it wasn't that she couldn't bear for Chu Zhetian to die, but a kind of unwillingness and pity. She felt that she hadn't yet been able to personally take revenge on this man. "Daughter, what do you think about Chu Zhetian's disappearance? Do you think that animal really died?" At this time, Su Hongtu also thought of Chu Zhetian. "Probably dead, right?" Su Ruoyan said angrily. Her tone was somewhat harsh. "It's a pity. We couldn't let him die in the Tai Xu Sect and extract his myriad transformation spiritual root." Su Hongtu also felt some regret, but he was also thinking about how to drain Chu Zhetian's value, and not really caring about the other party's safety. Someone. In the next second, Su Hongtu, after finishing the tea in his cup, picked up the teapot and found that it was empty, and called out to the door. However, the sound fell, but no disciple who was waiting outside appeared. Why is the entire Peak Master's mansion suddenly so quiet? Su Hongtu immediately frowned, and a look of doubt appeared on his face. Su Ruoyan also realized that something was not quite right. "Ha ha ha ha, Peak Master Su, there is no need to be so nervous. This one, under the sect master's orders, invites you to the sect master's mansion to discuss matters. Come with me, shall we? In the next second, accompanied by a few bursts of laughter, a group of people strode in. The leader was Deputy Sect Master Bai Hengqiu. Deputy Sect Master Bai? Su Hongtu's face became stern, and he was about to cup his hands in greeting. However, in the next second, his pupil shrank, because he clearly saw that a high-level cultivator behind Bai Hengqiu was carrying someone on his shoulder. That person was his younger daughter, Su Ruoyan. It was just that the other party had blood at the corner of her mouth, and her face was pale. She had clearly been knocked unconscious and forcibly captured. Whoosh! Su Hongtu reacted extremely quickly, turned, and fled. Su Ruoyan was still standing there, and hadn't reacted for a moment. Peak Master Su. Can you run away? Bai Hengqiu. Seeing this, a sneer appeared on his face. Buzz. Next, a powerful aura of Golden Core Stage 2 suddenly surged from his body. Chapter 90. They've made their move. The sect master's mansion. Chu Zhetian and Yueyue Han were sitting facing each other. That's right, the former had already returned long ago, and he had, at the first opportunity, sought out the sect master. And Manhwa and Paleontian, the two heaven-slicing sword sect ancestors, were disguised, secretly lurking around the sect's quiet mind domain. In order to, just in case. The quiet mind domain was a place that the sect had specifically divided up for the Taishangs of all generations, a place specifically for their cultivation and recuperation, far from the other areas of the sect. There were not only Bai Changqing's evergreen courtyard and Su Beiwang's northward-looking courtyard, but also the residences of the other Taishangs in the quiet mind domain. At this moment, Yushurahen's expression moved, and he took out a transmission jade slip from his arms. This is the fourth Taishang's message to me. She said that she had received a confidential report that the Dark Knight Palace and the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect would jointly attack my Tai Xu Sect. She asked me to immediately gather all the high-level officials of the sect for a sect meeting. She also specifically mentioned that the other four Taishangs who are in the sect, she would inform them herself, and that I didn't need to notify them separately. Yueyue Han showed it to Chu Zhetian and said with deep meaning. Chu Zhetian took a look, and then a cold smile appeared on his face. Sure enough, they are going to make their move. And I guessed it right, their first target is you, the sect master. Yueyue Han looked at him with a serious face, and sighed without expressing agreement or disagreement. Zhetian, to be honest, I have actually been wary of the Great Taishang and the Fourth Taishang for a long time. But I was just afraid that they would, in order to break through to the nascent soul, really drain the pond, and secretly refine the sect's spiritual veins. But I had never thought that they would collude with the Dark Knight Palace, and even subvert the sect and harm my life. If you hadn't repeatedly guaranteed it, I really wouldn't have dared to believe it, or even accept it. Chu Zhetian nodded. I understand how you feel, but whether what I said is true or false will be known soon. Without any accident, they will attack during this sect meeting. Zhetian, what do you think? Yueyue Han asked. It wasn't that he, the sect master, lacked his own opinion, but because he was uncertain about Chu Zhetian's current strength, so he wanted to probe the other party's opinion. Of course, we will use the situation to our advantage. What we want now, isn't it to lure the snake out of the hole? A playful arc curved at the corner of Chu Zhetian's mouth. By Chongqing, Jianlian, you two old things have been targeting me, haven't you? Want to design an intrigue and put me in a situation where I would die, have you? And also tortured senior brother Zhang into a fool, have you? Today, I will make you pay the price. Of course, what made Chu Zhetian's killing intent surge the most was that Bai Chongqing had actually locked Yueyue in the underground secret chamber for more than half a month. At that time, he was in the Golden Cicada secret realm, and if it wasn't for Chaolu to be with Yueyue, Chu Zhetian didn't know how terrified and helpless his daughter would be. In this more than half month, what kind of harm would Yueyue's young heart have suffered? Whenever he thought of this, Chu Zhetian wanted nothing more than to tear Bai Chongqing into pieces. But he and Ji Inlian were, in the final analysis, respected great elders of the sect. Even if his strength was sufficient, he couldn't directly move against them without substantive evidence. Therefore, he must lure them to actively bite the hook. Are you certain? If the other party really attacks, can we resist? Yu Shuihan said cautiously. Hearing this, Chu Zhetian said, hee. Then, a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation appeared in this secret room. Nascent soul. Yu Shuihan's eyes widened. After the shock, came deep joy and excitement. Everything is set. That same morning, the hour of the Chun time, in the meeting hall of the council pavilion, almost all of the high-level officials who had responsibilities in the sect were present. The main functional organizations of the Tai Xu Sect were divided into 4 halls, 3 courtyards, and 6 peaks. The 4 halls were the General Affairs Hall, which was in charge of the sect's affairs, the Disciplinary Hall, which was responsible for punishment and discipline, the Warfare Hall, which was in charge of external battles and killings, and the Contribution Hall, which was responsible for resource allocation. And the 3 courtyards were the Insight Courtyard, the Elder Courtyard, and the Inner and Outer Sect Affairs Courtyard. As for the 6 peaks, they were the Qinglong, Baihu, Zhuke, Xuanwu, Tungsha, and Gaochen peaks. It could be seen that today, in addition to the hall masters and peak masters, those of their subordinates who held deputy positions were also present, including the 4 deputy sect masters. In addition, there were also some elders and protectors who had been marginalized, and they were all present as well. The sect master has urgently summoned us. I wonder what it is about? A deputy hall master pretended not to know and discussed with others. I heard that the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect and the Dark Knight Palace will jointly attack our Tai Xu Sect. Damn the Heaven-Slicing Sword Sect. They're simply too deceiving. Yes, Peak Master, you had already married their great elder as a concubine, and they still won't let it go. Looking at the situation today, our Tai Xu Sect is also going to take big action. Yes, everyone came today. Almost all those in the sect have arrived. Where is Peak Master Su from Qinglong Peak? Why haven't we seen him? A group of high-level officials gathered together and discussed. It was just that a large portion of them occasionally flashed a hint of hidden light deep in their eyes. Just then, the sect master Yu Shuihan arrived and sat on the main seat of the council pavilion. Immediately after, the Great Taishang and the Fourth Taishang came to both sides of Yu Shuihan respectively. It could be seen that after the arrival of the latter two, a part of those present who held deputy positions or were marginalized sect high-level officials looked at them. Their eyes were vaguely carrying a sense of receiving information. Bai Changqing shook his head slightly, indicating that they shouldn't act rashly for the time being, and only then did these people withdraw their gaze and wait for the opportunity in an unobtrusive manner. Are you all here? At this time, Yu Shuihan said lightly, surveying the entire hall. Reporting to the sect master, Peak Master Su of Qinglong Peak has not yet arrived. The General Affairs Hall Master stood up and reported. Oh, Peak Master Su hasn't arrived yet? Isn't he in the sect? Why hasn't he come yet? Yu Shuihan frowned, and his eyes became stern. It seemed he had thought of something. Next, he turned to Ji Yinlian and said, Fourth Taishang, why are there only you and the Great Taishang? When will the other few Taishangs come? Did you notify them? As the words fell, Ji Yinlian smiled and said, Sect Master, I think it's better not to bother with Peak Master Su and the other Taishangs. Let's start now. Yu Shuihan, hearing this, immediately said, Start now? But, whoosh. However, before he could finish speaking, a sudden change occurred. Accompanied by a piercing sound of air, Yu Shuihan only felt an energy attack coming from his back. While he was talking to Ji Yinlian, Bai Changqing had actually drawn his sword directly and aimed at his lower back to his vital point. Clearly, he wanted to kill him with a single strike. And Ji Yinlian also made a lightning-fast attack with a long whip with barbs in her hand. It wrapped towards Yu Shuihan's neck like a venomous snake. At this moment, both people's eyes were filled with a smug look. You must know that Bai Changqing had already reached the peak of Golden Core Stage 9, and Ji Yinlian had also learned a certain evil technique of the Dark Knight Palace not long ago, reaching the peak of Stage 9 just like he did. and Yueyue's strength, in comparison, was only at Golden Core Stage 6. In addition, with their planning and his lack of it, and with two people's full force attack, without any accident, the other party would be killed instantly. Clang, clang. However, in the next moment, the sound of the blade-piercing flesh that was expected did not appear. The two's attacks landed on Yueyue's body, and two sounds of metal clashing were heard. In the next second, a playful smile appeared on the corner of Yueyue's mouth. The original fat face gradually turned into another face with distinct lines. Chapter 91. A Bite Back. Chu Zhetian. The faces of Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian were etched with wide-eyed astonishment, shock, disbelief, and fear. But what truly horrified them wasn't who stood before them. It was that person, after enduring their combined attack, seemed utterly unharmed. These were attacks from two peak-level cultivators at the 9th level of the Golden Core stage. Chu Zhetian. It is Chu Zhetian. He's not dead? How could the sect master be Chu Zhetian? Within the council hall, other high-ranking members of the sect murmured in surprise. Those aligned with Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian felt their hearts skip a beat. At this moment, He Shoujian, the head of the disciplinary hall, shifted his gaze between Bai Changqing, Ji Inlian, and Chu Zhetian. First elder, fourth elder, why did you suddenly attack the sect master, who is currently Chu Zhetian in disguise? Swish, swish, swish. At his words, many high-ranking members in attendance turned their attention towards Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian. Their eyes were filled with suspicion and confusion. Indeed, regardless of whether the man before them was Chu Zhetian or the sect master, why had the first elder and fourth elder suddenly launched such a vicious attack? Their actions clearly suggested an intent to kill. Kill. Bai Changqing regained his composure, his eyes burning with malice. He had no intention of answering He Shoujian's question. Instead, he charged towards Chu Zhetian once more. In his eyes, the fact that Chu Zhetian had withstood the previous blow suggested that the opponent had used some kind of treasure or trump card. After using it, Chu Zhetian would be defenseless. Continuing the assault now would surely allow him to kill or severely injure his opponent. Ji Inlian reacted with equal speed, also launching an attack alongside Bai Changqing. Seeing this, Vice Sect Master Ji Wuji and the other accomplices prepared to follow suit, intending to ambush the other high-ranking members present. Clang, clang. However, the next instant, two more sounds of clashing metal rang out. After Bai Changqing's sword and Ji Inlian's whip landed on Chu Zhetian, he remained unharmed. What? Still not giving up? As Chu Zhetian revealed his true form, a jade-like sheen was visible on his face. Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian's weapons hadn't managed to wound him in the slightest, but they did tear his clothes. The skin beneath the clothing also possessed a lustrous quality. It was as if it were made of exquisite jade. That's right. Chu Zhetian had activated his golden body, jade bones, a body-strengthening divine ability. The power of his bones permeated outward, contained within his skin, muscles, and fascia, enveloping him in a bone armor that transformed him into a human-shaped weapon. Boom, boom. In the next moment, Chu Zhetian unleashed two powerful punches that slammed into Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian. Even though they were both peak Golden Core 9th level experts, they were sent flying backwards by the force of the blows. While airborne, both of them simultaneously spat out a mouthful of blood. The difference between the first level of the nascent soul stage and the peak Golden Core 9th level, though seemingly only a small gap, was like the difference between heaven and earth. Combined with the immense physical strength of the body-refining shattered mountain realm, Chu Zhetian's advantage against the two was overwhelming. Everyone, be careful of those around you. And I warn those with malicious intentions. It's best not to act rashly. Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian are in my hands and cannot create any further waves. If you still want to follow them in overthrowing the sect, you will be doomed. Turn back now, while you still have a chance. At this moment, Chu Zhetian surveyed the scene, his voice ringing with severity. Hearing this, Those accomplices who had been about to act alongside by Chang'e and Ji Inlian all hesitated in place. For a time, they dared not act recklessly. Of course, the main reason was that they had witnessed with their own eyes that Bai and Ji, who they had believed to be invincible, were completely unable to harm Chu Zhetian. And in fact, they had been knocked away in a single exchange. The fluctuations of spiritual energy emanating from Chu Zhetian also instilled fear in their hearts. Nascent soul. Elder Chu has actually reached the nascent soul realm. Hiss. Am I mistaken? What's there to doubt? The first and fourth elders couldn't even withstand a single move from him. For a time, discussions filled the council hall. Sounds of gasping filled the air. And at this moment, He Shozhen glanced at Chu Zhetian, then at Bai and Ji, who had risen again, his expression wavering uncertainly. First elder, fourth elder, and Elder Chu. What is happening? Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian exchanged a glance. Both saw shock, resentment, and despair in the other's eyes. In the next second, they turned and attempted to flee the council hall in separate directions. Chu Zhetian had actually reached the nascent soul stage. This day was lost. However, just then, 5 figures appeared, blocking their paths from various directions. Bai Changqing, Ji Inlian, where are you going? Haven't you heard Headmaster Yi's question? Don't you want to give so many fellow disciples an explanation? This time, the real Yueyue Han appeared. On the normally gentle, chubby face of the sect master of the Tai Xu Sect, there now wore a deep expression of anger and heartache. His tone, cold and severe, questioned by Changqing and Ji Inlian. The third elder, fifth elder, sixth elder, and seventh elder, their gazes also carried a strong sense of doubt towards Bai and Ji. This one is the sect master? And several elders have arrived as well. What exactly is going on with the first and fourth elders? For a time, the numerous high-ranking sect members present all wore expressions of uncertainty. Thump, thump, thump. Seeing that they had been surrounded by Yueyue Han and others, and that there was also a nascent soul realm Chu Zhetian watching them, Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian retreated together. The former's mind raced, his eyes flickering. In the next second, he, laughed a few times, pointed at Yueyue Han and said, Yueyue Han, you traitor to the sect, isn't it you who should explain yourself to your fellow disciples? Me? Yueyue Han was stunned, pointing to himself. What's going on? The first elder is accusing the sect master of having to explain himself? Who is right and who is wrong between them? Hearing Bai Changqing's words, everyone felt a bit bewildered. Including the other 4 elders, they all frowned. Clearly, they too didn't yet know what exactly was going on. At that moment, Bai Changqing signaled to Ji Inlian, and the latter also displayed a look of anger and pain. That's right. It's you. Yueyue Han, don't you know? Actually, according to the information I received, besides the Dark Knight Palace's plot to collude with the Heavenly Sword Sect to attack our sect, there is an even more shocking inside story. That is, you, as the sect master, have long held ulterior motives towards the sect. In order to pursue even greater power, you betrayed the sect years ago and joined the Dark Knight Palace, seeking to elevate yourself through their evil methods. In addition, you have various dealings with the Heavenly Sword Sect. At these words, the entire hall erupted in an uproar. Both Chu Zhetian and Yueyue Han were surprised that the other side would launch a counterattack. Chapter 92. Laughter that shakes the scoundrels. Sect Master, what exactly is going on? At that moment, the third elder frowned and asked. The other high-ranking sect members also looked at Yueyue Han with confusion. Yueyue Han was so angry that he laughed in response. I am the sect master of the Tai Xu Sect. You say that I collude with the Dark Knight Palace and the Heavenly Sword Sect, seeking to overthrow my own sect? Ji Inlian, don't you think this is ridiculous? It's clearly you who want to overthrow the sect. Bai Changqing let out a cold snort. So what if you're the sect master? Countless cultivators have sacrificed even their own families in pursuit of greater power. It's not surprising that you couldn't resist the temptation of the Dark Knight Palace's evil methods and betrayed the sect. Unfortunately, today, the fourth elder and I discovered your plot, intending to eliminate you, this traitor, with the force of a thunderbolt, and then present the evidence of your crimes, giving an explanation and account to everyone in the sect. But we never expected to be tricked by you and Chu Zhetian. It seems that you two villains, with your sinister hearts, had also detected that your true identities would be exposed, didn't you? At this moment, this first elder spoke with righteous indignation. He even explained their previous sudden ambush of Yueyue Han as an attempt to clear out a traitor. For a time, discussions filled the hall. Heh, according to you, I'm also a mole for the Dark Knight Palace? At this moment, Chu Zhetian asked with a cold smile. Although he wanted to slash by Chang'e and Ji Inlian with his sword, it would be easy to kill them. However, raising doubts among other high-ranking sect members, and perhaps even causing discord, was a matter that he had to consider. They were the sect's elders. Only by completely exposing them could he legitimately execute them. And facing his question, Bai Changqing nodded matter-of-factly. Otherwise, as far as I know, 7 years ago, you fell into the hands of the Dark Knight Palace's demonic woman, Yiling Mei, but then inexplicably escaped. Actually, from that time on, you had already joined the Dark Knight Palace. That's why your strength progressed so quickly. Because you rely on cultivating the Dark Knight Palace's blood-refining technique, the more you kill, the faster your strength increases. Some time ago, Jinhong City was attacked by the Dark Knight Palace, resulting in countless deaths and rivers of blood. So, you've been hiding in Jinhong City during this period, and that's why your strength has rapidly improved, even breaking through to the nascent soul realm. All of this is built on the lives of countless people. Chu Zhetian, you are a complete and utter demonic cultivator. Your daughter, who carries a demonic seed, is the best proof. Hearing these words, all the high-ranking sect members present, including the 4 elders, looked at Chu Zhetian with a hint of suspicion. Even Chu Zhetian himself raised an eyebrow. How truly eloquent. One must say, Bai Changqing was indeed cunning and quick-thinking. In this situation, he could still manipulate people's hearts. His words were logical and based on evidence, but with many suspicious points. Even Chu Zhetian himself was beginning to wonder if he was truly a Dark Knight Palace spy. However, he and Yueyue Han were not at all flustered in the face of these lies. At this time, Yueyue Han and Chu Zhetian exchanged a glance, and the former asked in an orderly manner, "And then? You just said that I also have dealings with the Heavenly Sword Sect? And I even want to collude with the Heavenly Sword Sect and the Dark Knight Palace to attack our Tai Xu Sect together." Correct. Ji Inlian nodded matter-of-factly. Yueyue Han, the reason why you agreed to let your youngest daughter, Yu Chaolu, marry into the Heavenly Sword Sect as a concubine was because you were afraid that the Heavenly Sword Sect and the Dark Knight Palace would launch a large-scale attack on the Tai Xu Sect, and she would die here, right? So, you sent her to the Heavenly Sword Sect in advance to seek refuge. This matter, from beginning to end, is a conspiracy designed by you and Chu Zhetian. Killing Headmaster Bai was a part of it, and killing Zhong Wanlin was too. In this way, you can justify the Heavenly Sword Sect's war against the Tai Xu Sect. Once the sect is in a sea of blood, you and Chu Zhetian can rely on sacrificing living beings to quickly increase your strength. Chu Zhetian has already tasted the sweetness in Jinhong City, so you can't stop on the path of killing. You are so crazy that you even want to step on the lives of thousands of fellow disciples to pursue a higher realm. After these words, the eyes of all the high-ranking sect members, as well as the other 4 elders, towards Chu Zhetian and Yueyue Han had completely changed. Caution, suspicion, anger, and shock. Everything that Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian had said was too sensational. Most importantly, it could all be explained in a logical sequence, and the whole story could be linked together. Seeing the reactions of the crowd, Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian exchanged a glance and saw the triumph and satisfaction in each other's eyes. Their accomplices also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, could the situation take a turn? With the 2 elders' eloquent tongues, could they turn Yueyue Han and Chu Zhetian into traitors? Clap. Clap, clap, clap. At this moment, Chu Zhetian couldn't help but clap his hands. Impressive, truly impressive. The older and wiser, the black can even be turned into white by you. Bai Changqing's face appeared with an expression of righteous indignation, and his eyes towards Chu Zhetian and Yushui Han were as if he was truly looking at heinous villains. Chu Zhetian, what else do you have to say? Fellow disciples, for old friends, today, we must join hands to take them down. For the 1,000-year foundation of the Tai Xu Sect, I, Bai Changqing, am willing to risk my life to kill these two traitors. Everyone, are you willing to fight alongside me? A sonorous and seemingly righteous voice echoed in the hall. I am. Ji Yinlian immediately shouted in agreement. I am. Vice Sect Master Ji Wuji, who was also Ji Yinlian's grandnephew, shouted immediately after, with an air of excitement. I am. I am. To fight to the death for the Tai Xu Sect. Subsequently, those high-ranking sect members who were originally accomplices also shouted. The four elders and other hall masters and peak masters were also about to be infected. Don't. There is no evidence to prove that the sect master and elder Chu are truly traitors. No one is allowed to act rashly. He Shozhen, the head of the disciplinary hall, was still maintaining his composure and clarity. He immediately stepped forward and shouted loudly, "Ha ha 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 ha." And at this moment, Chu Zhetian burst into a loud laugh. His laughter was filled with ridicule and mockery, as if something incredibly laughable had touched his nerves. This burst of laughter instantly drowned out the righteous indignation of the traitors. It even shook everyone's eardrums and disrupted their energy. It instantly caused the emotions and momentum they had accumulated to crumble. In the next second, Chu Zhetian glared fiercely at Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian, his tone laced with playfulness. Bai Changqing, Ji Yinlian, regardless of how eloquent you are, in the end, everything you've said is just your speculation, right? You can't produce a single piece of evidence, and you want to incite the other fellow disciples to attack us? How ridiculous! But since you can't produce evidence, I can. Manhwa, Paleontian, come out. Chapter 93. Have you grown accustomed to weakness? As Chu Zhetian finished speaking, two figures slowly walked into the council hall. Upon seeing these two, Bai Changqing, Ji Yinlian, and the other four elders, as well as some of the older high-ranking sect members, were immediately stunned. You are the ancestor of the Heavenly Sword Sect, fellow Taoist Manhwa? And this is fellow Taoist Paleontian? The third elder widened his eyes and asked in disbelief, What? These two are the two ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect? The Heavenly Sword Sect is said to have 4 half-step nascent soul cultivators, and these are 2 of them? Why would they appear in our Tai Xu Sect? Has the Heavenly Sword Sect already attacked? And have the existences at the ancestor level personally taken action? For a time, everyone discussed this. The expressions on their faces were filled with surprise, wariness, hostility, and vigilance. It is indeed us. Manhwa greets all the fellow Taoists of the Tai Xu Sect. This one is Paleontian, and I greet everyone. Manhwa and Paleontian cup their hands towards the surroundings, their attitudes very humble. The ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect were actively saluting these high-ranking members of the Tai Xu Sect. Seeing the attitude of the two, everyone became suspicious again, and after Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian recovered, they immediately pointed at the two and questioned, Chu Zhetian, Yushui Han, have you exposed your collusion with the Heavenly Sword Sect? The ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect, have you brought them to our Tai Xu Sect? What is the difference between this and inviting a wolf into the house? Are you going to carry out your plan to collude with the Heavenly Sword Sect and the Dark Knight Palace to attack our sect today? At these words, the entire hall was shocked. The high-ranking sect members, who had originally been somewhat suspicious, finally revealed a hint of anger and hostility in their eyes towards Chu Zhetian and Yushui Han. The appearance of the two ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect seemed to confirm the fact that they were colluding with the Heavenly Sword Sect. Everyone, please don't misunderstand. The Heavenly Sword Sect will never attack the Tai Xu Sect. Manhwa immediately explained upon hearing this. And Chu Zhetian, and in a steady tone, asked, "Who told you that bringing the two Heavenly Sword Sect ancestors back to the sect means that I'm colluding with outsiders? Can it be that I subdued them?" Speaking of which, he said in a fierce tone and domineeringly, "Today, the disciple of the Tai Xu Sect, Chu Zhetian, is shameless in self-praising. Now, not only have I subdued these two ancestors, but the entire Heavenly Sword Sect has also been subdued by me. In a few days, a ceremony will be held. The Heavenly Sword Sect will henceforth become a subordinate sect of the Tai Xu Sect." Speaking of which, he looked around at the whole scene, and then pointed at by Chang'e and Jianlian and said, "So, you two old thieves, slandering me and the sect master of colluding with the Heavenly Sword Sect to attack our Tai Xu Sect is simply absurd. The Heavenly Sword Sect will not only not attack our sect, but will also be subordinate to our Tai Xu Sect in the future. Your lies are self-defeating." Chu Zhetian's voice was not loud, but it clearly reached everyone's ears. Yueyue's face was filled with relief, and also shouted, "That's right. Zhetian is not only not a traitor, but is also the greatest hero of our sect." By Changqing, Jianlian, what else do you have to say? Hua. At the sound, the entire council hall was in an uproar. What? Chu Zhetian has actually subdued the Heavenly Sword Sect? How is this possible? Our Tai Xu Sect has been weak for a long time, and has always been lower than the Heavenly Sword Sect. Can there be a day that they become our subordinate sect? Is this real? I don't quite believe it. At that moment, Bai Changqing let out a heavy cold snort. Fellow disciples, don't be fooled by Chu Zhetian. How could he possibly subdue the ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect, and even the entire Heavenly Sword Sect? This is just a conspiracy by him and the Heavenly Sword Sect to overthrow our Tai Xu Sect. At these words, Vice Sect Master Ji Wuji and other accomplices spoke to agree. The others all showed suspicion as well. This matter was too unbelievable. Including the three elders and the others, after looking at each other, their gazes at Ma Fenghua and Pei Liantian still carried strong hostility and wariness. If it were truly possible to subdue the Heavenly Sword Sect, it would undoubtedly be something that made people immensely excited. But, is this possible? Why isn't it possible? At this moment, Chu Zhetian shouted in a stern voice, his eyes emitting a piercing light as he swept across the scene. Have you all grown accustomed to the weakness of the Tai Xu Sect, and even can't accept your own strength? Don't believe it, is it? All right, I will prove it to you now. Saying that, he looked at Ma and Pei and said faintly, "The two of you, trouble you to make an oath again." "Yes, Senior Chu." The expressions of the two Heavenly Sword Sect ancestors looked somewhat unnatural. After all, this was not a glorious thing for them and the Heavenly Sword Sect. But would they dare to disobey? They wouldn't. Buzz. In the next second, along with a violent fluctuation, Ma Fenghua waved his hand. A treasure saber with an ancient and domineering appearance was taken out of his spatial treasure. It was the Heavenly Sword Sect's treasure, the heaven-shattering saber. The grade of this saber had reached the level of a celestial item, and it even had its own spirit of the tool. Therefore, it could communicate with the Heavenly Tao and establish the Oath of the Heavenly Saber. This celestial weapon saber was originally enshrined in the Heavenly Saber Hall of the Heavenly Sword Sect. But by Chu Zhetian's order, the four ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect also had to agree that Ma Fenghua would carry it with him. This is the heaven-shattering saber? The Heavenly Sword Sect's treasure? Such a strong saber chi. It is really the heaven-shattering saber. It is rumored that those belonging to the Heavenly Sword Sect, who take an oath to the heaven-shattering saber, called the Oath of the Heavenly Saber, will be supervised by the Heavenly Tao's will, and those who violate it will be directly avenged. Could it be? For a time, the whole scene was in turmoil. Some people had already vaguely guessed something. Plop, plop. In the next second, Ma Fenghua and Pei Liantian knelt on both knees toward the heaven-shattering saber, their expressions solemn as they began to take the oath. I, Ma Fenghua, ancestor of the Heavenly Sword Sect. I, Pei Liantian, ancestor of the Heavenly Sword Sect, hereby take the oath of the Heavenly Saber. The Heavenly Sword Sect, from top to bottom, from now on, swear to follow Senior Chu to the death. The Heavenly Sword Sect from now on becomes a subordinate sect of the Tai Xu Sect. If this oath is violated, I, Ma Fenghua, Pei Liantian, will be struck by a bolt of heavenly lightning, and my soul will be scattered, never to be reborn. The Heavenly Sword Sect will turn to ashes, and not a single chicken or dog will remain. Buzz. At the sound, a strange fluctuation of the heavenly Tao immediately appeared. It represented that the oath of the Heavenly Saber had been recognized by the will of the Heavenly Tao, and at the same time, would be supervised by the Heavenly Tao. And at this very moment, the entire Tai Xu Sect Council Hall was so quiet that a needle could be heard if it dropped. It was as if only the voices of Ma Fenghua and Pei Liantian were echoing for a long time. Every word seemed to be fiercely impacting everyone's heart. Hua. It wasn't known how long it had passed. Then there was an uproar. In the eyes of many people, even a mist of water appeared. It was a kind of triumphant and tearful joy. Chapter 94. There's no if only in this world. At that moment, many were trembling with excitement, their eyes welling up with tears. Sect Master Yueyue couldn't help but rub his own eyes. Even before, Chu Zhetian had spoken to him, even though he had already known everything in advance. But, deep down, he still had some disbelief. Because the Tai Xu Sect had been suppressed by the Heavenly Sword Sect for far too long. But now, seeing the two ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect, after a single sentence from Chu Zhetian, really kneeling and taking the oath of the Heavenly Saber, the sect master finally believed that it was all true. Others were also excited and uplifted beyond measure. The Heavenly Sword Sect is actually going to surrender to our Tai Xu Sect. Ha ha ha. In my lifetime, I can actually witness this day. Once upon a time, the Heavenly Sword Sect's attitude towards our Tai Xu Sect was so strong, arrogant, and aggressive. Today, their ancestors are kneeling and swearing fealty to our Tai Xu Sect. What once upon a time, just over 20 days ago, their great elder even brought a coffin to our Tai Xu Hall to act so arrogantly. Today, they are actually subjugated by the Tai Xu Sect. Ha 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 ha. Isn't this a dream? No, it's not being subjugated by the Tai Xu Sect, but by Elder Chu. The oath of the Heavenly Saber has been sworn. Even if it is hard to believe, it is still true. Chu Zhetian is the Tai Xu Sect's greatest benefactor. What traitor? That's utter nonsense. Among the 3 sects and 2 gates of Qinglu Prefecture who didn't know that the Tai Xu Sect was the weakest, those high-ranking sect members present who hadn't experienced the humiliation brought by the sect's weakness, not to mention the distant past, but the recent past of just over 20 days ago. The Heavenly Sword Sect's great elder carried a coffin, barged into the sect's important place, the Tai Xu Hall, and wantonly trampled upon the sect's dignity. He repeatedly claimed that he would go to war with the sect, but no one dared to do anything to him. To quell the other party's anger, they even had to marry off a peak master and the sect master's daughter to him as a concubine. Although it was for the sake of the greater good, what humiliation was this? However, in the cultivation world, the strong prey on the weak, and the Tai Xu Sect could only compromise. But in the blink of an eye, the Heavenly Sword Sect has actually surrendered? All of this because of one person, a heaven-defying genius, a peerless monster who had broken through to the nascent soul realm before the age of 30. Now, someone claims that this person is a traitor to the sect, colluding with the Heavenly Sword Sect to attack the Tai Xu Sect? What is this if not a joke and slander? At this moment, the facts are before their eyes. All the lies fabricated by Chang'e and Ji Inlian before have been completely shattered, even though their set of lies seemed so reasonable. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Bai and Ji stepped back a few steps, their faces now a grim, ashen color. The expressions of those accomplices present were also uncertain, but no one dared to act rashly. Chu Zhetian coldly looked at Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian and asked, "What else do you have to say?" Swish, swish, swish. Gazes, including the other four elders, also turned to them. Their eyes were filled with an air of questioning. First elder, fourth elder, give us an explanation. Why did you slander Elder Chu, and even attempt to harm the sect master's life before? What is your intention? At this moment, the third elder asked in a deep voice. The information I received before might have been false. We were misled. Ji Yinlian's face flickered repeatedly, and finally, she forced an explanation. Even on the verge of death, still quibbling? If you want to know their intention, nothing could be simpler. Let them hand over their respective spatial treasures. I believe there's various evidence inside. When the time comes, the truth will naturally surface. Chu Zhetian spoke directly to the point. Old Bai Yinlian, if you truly misjudge the information, then hand over your spatial treasures and let us examine them. The fifth elder gestured towards them. At this moment, the third, fifth, sixth, and seventh elders also had a few guesses in their hearts. How could they forget that many years ago, Bai Changqing had proposed that he wanted to refine the sect's spiritual vein to help him break through to the nascent soul realm? At that time, he had been firmly opposed by the sect master and them. And for so many years, Bai Changqing was still stuck at the peak of the Golden Core 9th level. Could it be that he wanted to? And facing the demands of the third and fifth elders, Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian exchanged a glance, and both saw a look of madness in each other's eyes. Swish. Knowing that they had no way to retreat, they were prepared to make a desperate struggle. They attacked simultaneously, charging towards Yushui Han, who was closest to them. This time, their target was the true sect master, a prey only at the 6th level of the Golden Core, not Yushui Han, who was disguised by the nascent soul expert Chu Zhetian. Bai and Ji truly were partners for dozens of years. Their thoughts were the same at this moment. Hold hostages to escape the Tai Xu Sect. Otherwise, with their hatred towards Chu Zhetian, once they fell into the other party's hands, there would be absolutely no chance of survival. Attack. And while attacking, Ji Yinlian roared at the accomplices. However, after hearing the order to attack, Vice Sect Master Ji Wuji and the others did not respond. At this moment, Bai and Ji seemed to be abandoned by everyone. Most importantly, facing a nascent soul expert like Chu Zhetian, plus the two ancestors of the Heavenly Sword Sect, as well as 4 elders, the sect master, and other sect experts, those accomplices had no courage to attack at all. What was the chance of winning? Besides being buried with Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian, there was no other meaning. It was better to remain still. Perhaps they themselves would not be exposed. Then, later, they could continue to eke out a living in the Tai Xu Sect. Boom, boom. In the next instant, Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian hadn't even touched Yushui Han when they were directly sent flying. They were directly blasted away by Chu Zhetian, who was prepared. Still want to fight like trapped beasts? Chu Zhetian walked towards them step by step, a cold smile on his face. The terrifying pressure on him made the two feel as though they couldn't breathe. Ha 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 ha. Chu Zhetian, I truly didn't expect your growth rate to be so fast. If I had known this, I should have killed you the moment you left the blood prison demon cave. Bai Changqing spat out a mouthful of blood and laughed bitterly with unwillingness. Ji Yinlian's eyes towards Chu Zhetian were also like a poisonous snake. There is no if only in this world. Chu Zhetian spoke coldly. In the next second, he was about to make a move to completely cripple their cultivation. The reason he didn't plan to kill them directly was because they were, after all, sect elders. They would definitely have to go through a trial before they could be executed openly. Chu Zhetian, stop. Otherwise, I'll kill the Su family. However, just at this moment, a harsh voice suddenly rang out. Chu Zhetian's expression sharpened, and he looked in the direction of the voice. He saw Vice Sect Master Bai Hengqiu, leading a group of diehards, had shockingly taken 3 people hostage and walked into the council hall. Those taken hostage were none other than Su Hongtu, Su Ruoyan, and Su Ruoyan. Chapter 95. Bringing a stone to hit one's own foot. The Su family, father and daughters, were all tied together with an iron chain by Hongqiu. The 3 of them all looked pale, their auras weak, and were obviously seriously injured. Hongqiu's strength had reached the 2nd level of the Golden Core. Dealing with Su Hongtu, the power of the mixed origin realm, was child's play. Su Ruoyan and Su Ruoyan, the sisters, needed no further mention. Vice Sect Master Bai, what are you doing? Release the 3 of them, Peak Master Su. Seeing this scene, Yu Shuihan's expression became stern, and he questioned in a voice filled with anger. And by Chang'e and Ji Inlian, upon seeing the timely arrival of the other party, the expressions of despair suddenly arose with a glimmer of hope. At this moment, Hongqiu's face carried a look of madness. Sect Master, can't you see it yet? That's right. I'm also an accomplice of the 1st and 4th elders. The 1st elder is going to die, and I can't live either. Speaking like this, he glanced at Bai Changqe. His eyes were incredibly complicated, because Bai Changqe had given him a poison that was incredibly insidious. As for what the poison was and how to solve it, only Bai Changqe himself knew. So once the other party died, he, Bai Hongqiu, couldn't live either. Yu Shuihan looked at him and asked with heartache, as the Vice Sect Master, why are you doing this? Just because Bai Changqe is your elder? It's not. As you said, I'm just the Vice Sect Master, and I'm dreaming of becoming the real Sect Master. For so many years, I've been living under you. Do you know how unwilling I am? Enough with the nonsense. Let Chu Zhetian make way for the 1st and 4th elders, or I'll kill Peak Master Su and his 2 daughters. Bai Hongqiu roared with a fierce voice. Swish. Speaking, he suddenly drew his longsword and placed it on Su Ruoyan's neck. Hearing this, Yu Shuihan frowned, and his gaze turned to Chu Zhetian. That meant he should make the decision himself. He wouldn't rely on his status as Sect Master to force Chu Zhetian to do anything. At this moment, Bai Changqe and Ji Inlian, looking at Chu Zhetian who was standing in front of them, were full of stern words. Chu Zhetian still won't make way for us. Otherwise, I'll let Hongqiu kill the Su family. Bai Changqe clutched his chest and stood up staggeringly, his words filled with threats. Hearing this, Chu Zhetian looked at the Su family, his gaze lingering on Su Ruoyan's face for a second. He didn't care about the life or death of Su Hongtu and Su Ruoyan at all, and even didn't mind killing the 2 with someone else's hand. If there was anything he cared about, perhaps it was only Su Ruoyan, and at the same time, Su Ruoyan's gaze also looked at him. In the instant their eyes met, both couldn't help but think of that night's madness and intimacy. However, Chu Zhetian's gaze soon became calm and indifferent. It was as if he didn't particularly care about Su Ruoyan. This made a glimmer of bleakness and mockery flash deep within Su Ruoyan's eyes. She knew that she and Chu Zhetian, in the end, were just fleeting lovers. She had seduced him for 5 years, and her original intention was, as she had said, to revenge against her sister Su Ruoyan, to deliberately disgust the other party, and the second was that she felt it was fun to tease Chu Zhetian. Although after Chu Zhetian broke off relations with her sister, the 2 had that one time. But it was only that. If there were truly any feelings between the 2, it actually couldn't be counted at all. In this situation, would Chu Zhetian spare Bai Changqe and Ji Inlian, who had persecuted his daughter and senior brother, for her? Su Ruoyan seemed to have understood the answer from Chu Zhetian's cold and indifferent gaze. And in the next second, the words Chu Zhetian spoke seemed to confirm her inner guess. Heh, you're using the Su family's lives to threaten me. Don't you think it's ridiculous? I have already severed relations with them and even become enemies. Kill if you want to kill. Who cares? At the sound, everyone's expressions were different. Some had a blank expression, feeling it was only natural. Some felt that Chu Zhetian was too ruthless. And there were even those who were hysterical and cursed. For example, at this moment, Su Ruoyan, who had a sword held to her neck. Chu Zhetian, you bastard, How can you say such an inhumane thing? We were husband and wife for a day, and we were together for 100 days. In any case, we were husband and wife for 5 years. You're actually ignoring my life now? Save me! Save me! Su Ruoyan was frightened and resentful, yet she pleaded. Su Hongtu also pointed at Chu Zhetian and accused him. Chu Zhetian, you are so heartless and unrighteous. How can you gain the support of the public? Turning a blind eye to the life and death of your former master, father-in-law, and wife. Aren't you afraid that the world will denounce you? Give the first elder and the fourth elder a way to survive, and at most, kill them later. I am the Qinglong Peak Master, and my death is also a great loss to the Qinglong Peak and the sect. Do you understand? How can you ignore the lives of fellow disciples because of personal grudges? This Qinglong Peak Master, as always, was all about the great principles. He never admitted that everything he did was for personal gain, but rather for the sect and Qinglong Peak. If Chu Zhetian didn't save him, then that would be taking revenge for personal grudges. At the sound, Chu Zhetian laughed. In the next second, his voice was raised a few decibels, as if carrying a touch of enthusiasm. Peak Master Su said, well, since you are all considering the sect, then you and your daughters should die even more. Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian are trying to overthrow the Tai Xu Sect. Once they are allowed to return to the mountains and forests, they will definitely become a great threat to the sect in the future. Eliminate the root now, in order to help the sect eliminate future troubles. So, since Peak Master Su is wholeheartedly considering the interests of the sect, then please Peak Master Su and your daughter, show some spirit that is not afraid of sacrifice. Rest assured, you are sacrificing for the great cause. After your death, the sect will erect a monument for you, will burn paper for you every year, and will tell your descendants about your glorious deeds. So, please, Peak Master Su and your daughter, go to your deaths with generosity. Moral coercion? Ask who wouldn't? You. Su Hongtu's face turned red and then white at the words. Puff. In the next second, he was already seriously injured by Hongqiu, and he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. A look of unprecedented fear of death appeared on Su Ruoyan's face. Chu Zhetian, save me. I don't want to die. I beg you to save me. I was wrong. I know I was wrong before. However, Chu Zhetian didn't even look at her, and gestured to Bai Hongqiu and said, kill quickly if you want to. Although I feel very saddened, powerless, and indignant to see my ex-wife and ex-father-in-law sacrificed, I am forced to do this. But for the sake of the sect's interests, I, Chu Zhetian, am willing to bear it all. Hearing this, Su Hongtu spat out another mouthful of old blood. The people present all twitched their faces. You say, are you really sad, powerless, and indignant? Why didn't we see any of it? All right. Is Su Hongtu bringing a stone to hit his own foot? Trying to use morality to coerce Chu Zhetian. Now it's good. The other side is standing on a higher moral high ground than him, and then ask him to die. This move is to treat others in the same way, and is simply a matter of killing people and destroying their souls. Speaking of which, Chu Zhetian seemed to ignore everything else, and his aura locked onto by Changqing and Ji Yinlian again. He seemed to truly ignore Bai Hongqiu's threat and wanted to attack the two. Chu Zhetian, stop. Otherwise, I'll really kill Su Ruoyan. The whole Tai Xu Sect, who doesn't know that you are deeply in love with her. I just don't believe you really don't care about her. You don't think I dare to kill her? At this moment, Bai Hongqiu's eyelids jumped, shouting frantically in madness. The sword in his hand began to exert force, and it had already cut through Su Ruoyan's neck. Chu Zhetian, don't ignore me. I don't want to die. Save me. I actually love you. I haven't seen you for so long. I haven't stopped missing you for a single day. The reason why I have been targeting you before was just to get your attention and make you change your mind about me. Feeling the pain and coldness coming from her neck, Su Ruoyan was so frightened that her whole body was trembling. Facing the shadow of death, she showed a look of desolation and deep affection, and cried out to Chu Zhetian. Chapter 96. Have you gone blind? Hearing Su Ruoyan's cries behind him, Chu Zhetian's mouth curled up in a mocking smile. Acting is really good. Targeting himself had become a way to attract his attention and to make him change his mind. If it hadn't been for his previous life when he was crossing the tribulation, when he witnessed the venom and disgust of the other party towards himself, he would have been convinced. And now, Chu Zhetian had no softness of heart, only disgust. Seeing that he didn't turn his head and his aura still locked onto himself, Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian were shocked and angered to the extreme. Chu Zhetian really didn't care about the Su family's life or death. What about his son, Chu Kongqing? He couldn't really ignore it, could he? Seeing that the other party was about to attack them, Bai and Ji cursed in their hearts. Where's that good-for-nothing Bai Pengkuan? Chu Zhetian, you cannot care about Su Ruoyan, but your son Chu Kongqing's life, do you want it or not? Just at this moment, a gloomy voice rang out at the right time. Hearing the sound, Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian's faces immediately showed a look of ecstasy. It was as if they had seen a life-saving straw again. Looking at the sound, after Bai Hengqiu, Bai Pengkuan, who was temporarily serving as the White Tiger Peak Master, had shockingly taken two figures, one large and one small, into the hall. It was Zhang Beichen and Chu Kongqing, who was only 4 years old. Let go of me. Bastard, let go of me. At this moment, Chu Kongqing was being held in by Pengkuan's hand, and was still clamoring and struggling. Slap. Bai Pengkuan slapped Chu Kongqing's face. Little bastard, shut up, otherwise, I'll kill you. At this moment, Chu Kongqing immediately became quiet. Although his eyes towards Bai Pengkuan were extremely resentful, he dared not make a sound anymore. Kongqing. Seeing this, Zhang Beichen's heart ached terribly. He glared at Bai Pengkuan with a face full of anger. Bai Pengkuan, if you have the ability, come at me. Don't worry. If Chu Zhetian doesn't release the first and fourth elders today, you all have to die. At worst, we all perish together. Bai Pengkuan said with a mad and ferocious face. Like Bai Hengqiu, he had also been poisoned by Bai Changqing. So, today, no matter what, he had to risk his life to save Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian, and bite the bullet to negotiate with Chu Zhetian. Kongqing. Su Ruoyan exclaimed when she saw this. Su Hongtu and Su Ruoyan's faces also changed. In order to threaten Chu Zhetian, was their family being taken hostage? However, is it really useful to threaten Chu Zhetian with their family? Bai Changqing, Ji Yinlian, you have really kept your hands on several things. You even grabbed the child? At this moment, Chu Zhetian's mouth curved into a mockery and asked, Bai Pengkuan, the sect master just appointed you as the White Tiger Peak Master. Why do you need to collude with Bai Changqing? The third elder questioned Bai Pengkuan angrily. Bai Pengkuan, Bai Hengqiu, release the hostages. As long as you draw a clear line with Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian now, I guarantee that the past will not be pursued. Yushui Han expressed with a gloomy face. The other high-ranking sect members present also urged the two to plead. And Ma Fenghua and Pei Liantian, the two heavenly sword sect ancestors, looked at each other at this moment. Both saw that touch of regret in each other's eyes. It turned out that there were so many hidden dangers within the Tai Xu Sect, which was full of crises. If it weren't for Chu Zhetian, who was born from the void and had frightened their heavenly sword sect, it should have been that their heavenly sword sect, taking advantage of the chaos of the Tai Xu Sect, would have annexed the latter. But now, thinking of this was meaningless. The Tai Xu Sect, just because of the existence of Chu Zhetian alone, was enough to turn everything around. They had to gather their minds and follow the other party wholeheartedly. Ha ha ha, it's too late. We have no way to turn back. At this moment, facing Yushui Han and the other high-ranking sect members' persuasion, Bai Pengkuan laughed resolutely. In the next second, he raised his chin at Chu Zhetian and asked with a harsh voice, Chu Zhetian, give the first and fourth elders a way to survive. Otherwise, I will kill your son. Chu Zhetian stood there, his gaze towards Chu Kongqing. The 4-year-old child was also looking at himself at this moment. It was just that there was no intimacy or adoration in his eyes. It certainly carried some expectation and fear. Just expecting himself to save him. Fearing death. My son? Chu Zhetian shook his head mockingly. Did he ever treat me as his father? Is he really Chu Zhetian's son? At the sound, there was a faint commotion in the audience. Many people thought of the words Chu Zhetian had said when he had broken up with the Su family at the chief conferment ceremony of the Qinglong Peak before. Could it be that Chu Kongqing really wasn't his son, but was Su Ruoyan and Zhang Beichen's? If this were really the case, then how could Chu Zhetian care about the life and death of this child today? At this moment, some people who originally thought Chu Zhetian was somewhat ruthless also felt it was not worthwhile for him. Zhetian, today's matter, you watch what to do. Yu Shuihan patted his shoulder and again indicated that everything would be decided by him. And Zhang Beichen was anxious. How is it not? No matter what, Kongqing has called you father for 5 years. You can ignore our life and death, but must you really watch Kongqing die in front of you? Chu Zhetian's face was as cold as water, and he asked coldly while looking at Zhang Beichen, Senior brother Zhang, it seems you care very much about this child? Seems to care more than me, the biological father? Because Kongqing calls me godfather, then I am also his father. I, Zhang Beichen, am not as cold-blooded as you. Even if Kongqing calls me godfather once, I have to act like a father, and he has called you father for 5 years. No matter what, the child is innocent. Zhang Beichen's eyes flickered a few times, and intentionally provoked. Hearing this, Chu Zhetian's face was as cold as water, but finally nodded. I have to say, you people, each and every one of you, are really good at moral coercion. All right, today, I can also keep you safe and sound, but, speaking of which, Chu Zhetian's tone was fierce. I need your performance to satisfy me. Ho, how to make you satisfied? Hearing this, Su Hongtu's eyes brightened, and he was the first to tentatively ask. Su Ruoyan, Zhang Beichen, and even 4-year-old Chu Kongqing all looked at Chu Zhetian expectantly, as if they had seen the hope of survival. And Bai, Ji, and Bai Hengqiu, Bai Pengkuan's hearts all moved. Chu Zhetian softened his stance. Keeping the Su family safe and sound also meant that he would compromise and would let them go. Thus, the sword that Bai Hengqiu was holding to Su Ruoyan's neck finally stopped exerting force. Since they could talk, he naturally wouldn't kill the hostage casually to avoid angering Chu Zhetian. Chu Zhetian smiled, and a look of playfulness arose on his face, and said to Su Hongtu and the others, How to do it? You watch and do it. What did you do to be sorry to me? Don't you know in your heart? If you make me happy and release my anger, then I will spare your lives today. Hearing this, Su Ruoyan nodded quickly. Good, good. Speaking, she fell to her knees towards Chu Zhetian with a thud. Thud, thud. Su Hongtu and Zhang Beichen followed suit. Only Su Ruoyan and Chu Kongqing, who was being held by Bai Pengkuan, didn't kneel. The former just looked at Chu Zhetian, her eyes filled with a touch of sadness. At this moment, Su Ruoyan looked at Chu Zhetian in a pitiable way. Zhetian, I knelt down for you. It's us who were blind before I... Speaking of which, her words were directly interrupted by Chu Zhetian. As expected of Fairy Ruoyan, when you speak you get straight to the point. But you say you all were blind? How didn't I see it? Are your eyes not still working? Chu Zhetian asked with a cold smile, a cruel and cold look flashing in his eyes. Swish. Hearing this, Su Ruoyan's expression immediately froze on her face. Su Hongtu and Zhang Beichen's hearts skipped a beat. Zhetian, you? What do you mean by that? Su Ruoyan's face forced a smile and asked hesitantly. Chapter 97. Ruthless enough? At this moment, everyone's gaze toward Chu Zhetian carried a hint of fright. His words implied that he wanted the Su family to really gouge out their own eyes. Hiss. So ruthless. And Chu Zhetian, hearing Su Ruoyan's knowing question, showed an expression of utmost disappointment. Still playing dumb? Saying this, he gestured to Bai Hengqiu and Bai Pengkuan and said, Kill them. There's nothing left to discuss. At the sound, Su Ruoyan's face changed drastically, as if she felt the cold blade on her neck again. Su Hongtu and Zhang Beichen's faces changed even more. It wasn't just them. Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian were both anxious and enraged. The situation now was, if the Su family didn't satisfy Chu Zhetian, then they wouldn't be given a way out. You bitch, what are you still pretending to be? Since you're saying you were blind, then quickly poke out your own eyes? Ji Yinlian said in a gnashing tone. If you don't satisfy Chu Zhetian, then your whole family will be buried with us today. Bai Chongqing said in a harsh voice. Bai Penghuan tightened his grip on Chu Kongqing's hand, and the child was immediately frightened, crying and screaming. Wah! I don't want to die. Woo woo woo. Mom, you yourself said that you were blind? Kongqing doesn't want to die. Woo woo woo. Hurry up and poke out your eyes. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. This 4-year-old little boy cried and shouted. Frightened. His voice was breaking. Hearing this, Su Ruoyan looked at her son with disbelief. She couldn't believe that Kongqing, who was so cute and innocent and sensible in her eyes, would actually say such things. And Zhang Beichen was immediately anxious, thinking that Bai Penghuan was really going to harm Chu Kongqing. Ah, I'll do it. Pshh. Accompanied by a fierce roar, Zhang Beichen actually stretched out 2 fingers and plunged them fiercely into his own eyes. Following that, there was a shrill scream. Zhang Beichen's 2 eye sockets immediately turned into 2 blood holes. He was laughing bitterly while facing Chu Zhetian's direction. Junior brother Chu, I am sorry to you. You treated me as a senior brother, as a brother, but I have always been jealous of you. I even secretly, behind your back, had an affair with Su Ruoyan. Before, I had also instigated by Yi Fei to harm your life, and planned with Su Hongtu and Su Ruoyan, and even tried to steal your spirit root. I deserve to die. I deserve to die. Look, am I sincere enough now? Are you satisfied? Between death and becoming blind, Zhang Beichen quickly made his decision. One must say, he was also a ruthless person. His words caused a commotion in the scene. It turned out that Zhang Beichen was so dirty and private, and had done so many things that were wrong to Chu Zhetian. Even the hatred between Chu Zhetian and the White Tiger Peak was also instigated by him. And Su Ruoyan had also really had an affair, and betrayed Chu Zhetian. No wonder Chu Zhetian was so decisive before. At this moment, no one felt that Chu Zhetian was cruel and heartless. One could only say that this pair of dogmen and women were too hateful. Not very satisfied. Now only you are blind. Chu Zhetian looked at Zhang Beichen stabbing out his own eyes, and a surge of joy surged up in his heart. But still, he shook his head, his gaze coldly fixed on Su Ruoyan. The latter immediately shivered, looking at Zhang Beichen's miserable appearance. The whole person cried in utter despair. No, I don't want to. Zhetian, please don't force me like this. It was Zhang Beichen who once forced himself on me, and I only did things that were wrong towards you. Actually, my heart has always loved you. I remember all the good things you have done for me. I remember you helping me to improve my strength, and you always used your own spiritual power to help me cultivate. I remember, for 5 years, every day you. Su Ruoyan knelt there, and was trying to awaken Chu Zhetian's love for her. Shut up. Don't mention these anymore. I was blind before. Now hearing these, it only makes me disgusted. You make me very unsatisfied. Chu Zhetian directly roared to interrupt. The final words, unsatisfied, fell, which immediately frightened Zhang Beichen, who had already stabbed out his own eyes. The other party was not satisfied, then he and his son, Chu Kongqing, would have to die. He had already gambled his own eyes, but in the end, if it was because of Su Ruoyan making Chu Zhetian unsatisfied, then he would not be able to close his eyes even in death. Su Ruoyan, you bitch, when did I force myself on you? Clearly, you were the one who actively seduced me. I've already stabbed out my own eyes. Why aren't you doing it yet? Are you trying to kill us all? Zhang Beichen said, and actually pounced towards Su Ruoyan with his teeth and claws. It was thanks to the fact that he was blocked by Penghuan with chains. Otherwise, looking at this posture, he wanted to dig out Su Ruoyan's eyeballs with his own hands. Pshh. However, he didn't need to do it himself, as Su Hongtu suddenly made a move. 2 fingers, like steel bars, fiercely poked into his own eldest daughter's eyes. Ah! Su Ruoyan immediately let out a shrill scream. After Su Hongtu pulled out his fingers, her pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes had also turned into a pair of blood holes. The whole person immediately fell to the ground and rolled, and was convulsing with pain. And seeing this scene, Bai Hengqiu, who was holding them, also did not stop. Now they had a common goal, to make Chu Zhetian satisfied. In this way, the other party would be willing to protect the Su family, which also meant that he was willing to give them a way out. So, Bai Hengqiu and Bai Pengkuan, who were holding the hostages, would only cooperate to make the Su family act out this tragedy, or rather, a farce. Good son-in-law, I'll help you blind this unworthy daughter. In fact, I have always known that you are my most outstanding disciple and are the best son-in-law in the world. But I was blinded by lard before, because of your background, and also because of the influence of this unworthy daughter. That's why I have always looked down on you. I know that I, as the first peak master, am not entirely relying on you. If it weren't for you, this sect's first genius, and if it weren't for the myriad transformations gathering spirit array you set up, me and the Qinglong Peak would be nothing. I know I was wrong. It's true that I, the master, was blind before, and I, the father-in-law, was dissatisfied before. I will now repent to you, Su Hongtu said, and used his two blood-covered fingers, which had just poked out his daughter's eyes, to pierce his own eyes again. Pshh. His eyes, as well, became bloody and blurred, becoming two blood holes. Ha ha ha, good son-in-law. Now, are you satisfied? Seeing this scene, everyone present revealed a shocked expression. One must say, Su Hongtu was really extremely utilitarian and ruthless. In order to make Chu Zhetian satisfied, and to save his own life, he actually stabbed out his own daughter's eyes. Right. Also, that Kongqing's little bastard, and my little daughter. I'll stab them out now. At this time, Su Hongtu suddenly thought of something, and stared at the two blood holes and looked back. He was about to stab Su Ruoyan as well. Seeing his father's crazy appearance, Su Ruoyan's face immediately changed drastically, and her eyes were full of terror. He knew that Su Hongtu really could make the move. Stop! Enough! However, just at this moment, Chu Zhetian shouted in a stern voice, and immediately stopped Su Hongtu. Chapter 98. Kill Su Ruoyan first. Boom! As Chu Zhetian's words came out, Su Hongtu had not yet reacted, but Bai Hengqiu kicked him away, preventing him from doing anything to Su Ruoyan. No other reason. Of everyone present, Chu Zhetian's words were now the most effective. And Su Ruoyan let out a breath, and a complicated expression flashed in her eyes as she looked at Chu Zhetian. Everything has nothing to do with Su Ruoyan. Chu Kongqing is also a child. If he dares to commit evil in the future, I will personally end him. At this moment, Chu Zhetian coldly spoke. In his previous life, when he was crossing the tribulation, Chu Kongqing's resentful expression was also vivid in Chu Zhetian's memory, especially as he had always treated him as his own son, and this had caused Chu Zhetian a deeper hurt. But at the moment, the other party was still just a 4-year-old child. Seeing the fate of Su Hongtu, Su Ruoyan, and Zhang Beichen now, he had already vented the anger in his heart. For year-old Chu Kongqing, let it go for now. If the other party provoked him or Yaya one day, then he'd deal with it. Ha 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 ha. Just at this moment, Su Ruoyan, who was writhing in pain, let out a burst of shrill laughter. Her laughter was filled with deep resentment, jealousy, and mockery. What has nothing to do with Su Ruoyan? Ha 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 ha. Chu Zhetian, I think you've had a relationship with this little slut Su Ruoyan, right? You can't bear to have her blind, can you? Why? Why are you so cruel to me now, yet so sympathetic to this little bitch? Su Ruoyan sat on the ground. Her two eyes had become blood holes, but she still seemed to be glaring at Chu Zhetian. At this moment, she looked like a female ghost. Accompanied by 2 lines of blood tears, she questioned Chu Zhetian in a harsh voice. Once upon a time, it was clearly herself who was held in this man's palm. For 5 years, he was so compliant, obedient, and loving to her. But now, why could he be so ruthless? Why? Why? At this moment, Su Ruoyan's inner self, besides resentment and unwillingness, still had not a shred of remorse. This kind of woman would never look for the reason within herself. She only felt that it was Chu Zhetian who was unfaithful, fickle, and petty. Even if she had an affair, even if the son born was not his, could he be so heartless? What of 5 years of marital affection? And facing the woman's hysteria, Chu Zhetian just looked at her expressionlessly. Of course, he wouldn't bother to explain to Su Ruoyan that he and her sister had always been clean before he broke off their relationship. Slap. However, Chu Zhetian didn't react, and someone directly slapped Su Ruoyan, who had gone crazy. Bastard! Shut up! Stop barking! Su Hongtu identified the location by listening to the sound and fiercely slapped her. In the next second, this former master, father-in-law, knelt on the ground and forced out a flattering smile. Zhetian, is it enough? Is it really enough? In other words, you are willing to spare our lives? Chu Zhetian nodded. That's enough. Actually, from the very beginning, Chu Zhetian didn't want the Su family and Zhang Beichen to die. The hostages included Su Ruoyan. He couldn't ignore this little girl. And most importantly, no matter what, Su Hongtu was the second elder's grandson, and Su Ruoyan was also his great-granddaughter. He couldn't, without the second elder's presence, truly watch the direct descendants of the old man die miserably. This way, they had already gotten their due retribution, and it was almost enough. The most cruel revenge often wasn't to let the other party die. To let them live in darkness for a lifetime. Perhaps it was more painful than death. As the words, "that's enough," were spoken from Chu Zhetian's mouth, the Su family immediately showed an expression of ecstasy. Similarly, by Chang'e, Ji Inlian, by Hengqiu, and by Pengkuan all revealed deep hope. Good. Since that's enough, then you all make way. After we leave the Tai Xu Sect for 100 miles, then we will release these hostages. By Changqing's voice contained a touch of excitement. Yushui Han, the 4 elders, including Ma Fenghua and Pei Liantian, all cleared a path for Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian. Today's matter was decided entirely by Chu Zhetian. Since the other party had softened his stance, even if Yushui Han and others were unwilling, they could only let Bai and Ji go. However, just at this moment, Chu Zhetian looked at Bai Changqing as if he were an idiot and asked, "I only said I will protect the Su family. When did I say I would let you leave?" Swish. At the sound, Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian's faces changed drastically. Boom, boom. At the same time, Chu Zhetian punched out 2 fist marks and fiercely struck at Bai and Ji's lower abdomen. The 2, who were already seriously injured, were sent flying. After landing, their faces were as pale as paper. Both of their dantian had been shattered by Chu Zhetian's punches. Their cultivation was abolished. Chu Zhetian. Bai Changqing roared with resentment and anger, and then shouted with all his strength, "Pengqiu, Pengkuan, kill!" Chu Zhetian never intended to let us go. Slaughter the Su family, and drag a few of them to be buried with us. Kill. And Chu Zhetian's sudden attack not only made Bai and Ji despair and go crazy, but also made Su Hongtu and the others feel angry and fearful. Chu Zhetian, you beast! You played us? Su Hongtu cursed with a face like a mourning dog. Because of his anxious anger, his eyes, which had become blood holes, even spewed out blood. Chu Zhetian, you will not die a good death. We blinded our own eyes for you, yet you break your promise. Zhang Beichen also cursed frantically, and Su Ruoyan felt Bai Hengqiu's sword pointed at her neck again, and immediately fell into an ice cave. In this flash of lightning and flint, she rapidly thought, and said in a hurried voice, "Don't kill me. Kill Su Ruoyan first. She's the one Chu Zhetian truly cares about." Swish. Bai Hengqiu reacted upon hearing this, and slashed at Su Ruoyan with the sword. Faced with Chu Zhetian's sudden attack, Bai Hengqiu had no certainty of being able to kill all the hostages in his hand before the other party attacked. So, since they were all going to die, they naturally had to kill the person Chu Zhetian cared about the most. And from everything that had happened before, Chu Zhetian didn't care about Su Hongtu and Su Ruoyan at all. One could even say he was ruthless to the extreme. What he cared about was, on the contrary, this former sister-in-law. In this instant, Su Ruoyan felt the whistling wind of the sharp sword, and instead became calm. It was just that her beautiful eyes carried desolation and despair, staring fixedly at Chu Zhetian, as if, before her death, she had to remember his face. Buzz. However, in this moment, Su Ruoyan suddenly felt that her body was surrounded by a powerful and wonderful fluctuation. Chapter 99. Who stands with me? At this moment, everyone looking at Chu Zhetian had a look of alarm. His implication, was it to make the Su family really gouge out their own eyes? Hiss. So cruel. And Chu Zhetian, hearing Su Ruoyan's knowing question, revealed an expression of utmost disappointment. Still playing dumb? Saying this, he gestured to Bai Hengqiu and Bai Pengkuan and said, "Kill them. Nothing more to discuss." At the sound, Su Ruoyan's face changed drastically, as if she felt the cold blade on her neck again. Su Hongtu, Zhang Beichen's expressions changed even more. It wasn't just them. Bai Changqing and Ji Yinlian were also anxious and enraged. The situation now was, if the Su family didn't satisfy Chu Zhetian, then they would definitely not be given a way out. Bitch, what are you still pretending to be? Since you said you were blind, then hurry up and blind your own eyes? Ji Yinlian cursed in a gnashing tone. If you don't satisfy Chu Zhetian, your whole family will be buried with us today. Bai Changqing said in a harsh voice. Bai Pengkuan's grip on Chu Kongqing's hand also tightened, and Chu Kongqing was immediately frightened, crying and wailing. Wah wah, I don't want to die. Woo woo woo. Mom, you said yourself you were blind? Kongqing doesn't want to die. Woo woo woo. Hurry and stab out your own eyes. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. This 4-year-old boy, crying and shouting. Frightened. His voice broke. Hearing this, Su Ruoyan looked at her son with disbelief. She couldn't believe that Kongqing, who was so cute and innocent and sensible in her eyes, would actually say such things. And Zhang Beichen was immediately anxious, fearing that Bai Pengkuan was really going to harm Chu Kongqing. Ah, I'll do it. Pshh. Accompanied by a fierce roar, Zhang Beichen actually stretched out 2 fingers and thrust them fiercely into his own eyes. Following that, there was a shrill scream. Zhang Beichen's 2 eye sockets immediately turned into 2 blood holes. He was laughing bitterly as he faced Chu Zhetian. Junior brother Chu, I'm sorry. You treated me as your senior brother, but I have always been jealous of you. I even secretly, behind your back, had an affair with Su Ruoyan. Before, I even instigated Bai Yifei to harm your life, and schemed with Su Hongtu and Su Ruoyan to steal your spirit root. I deserve to die. I deserve to die. Look, am I sincere enough now? Are you satisfied? Between death and becoming blind, Zhang Beichen quickly made his decision. One must say, he was also a ruthless person. His words caused a commotion on the scene. It turned out that Zhang Beichen was so dirty in private and had done so many things that were wrong towards Chu Zhetian. Even the hatred between Chu Zhetian and the White Tiger Peak was also instigated by him. And Su Ruoyan had really betrayed Chu Zhetian? No wonder Chu Zhetian was so decisive before. At this moment, no one felt that Chu Zhetian was cruel and heartless. One could only say that this pair of dogs, men and women, were too hateful, not very satisfied. Now only you've blinded yourself. Chu Zhetian looked at Zhang Beichen stabbing out his own eyes, and a surge of satisfaction welled up. But he still shook his head, his gaze coldly fixed on Su Ruoyan. The latter immediately trembled, looking at Zhang Beichen's miserable appearance, the whole person crying and looking distraught. No, I don't want to. Zhetian, please don't force me like this. It was Zhang Beichen who once forced himself on me, and I only did things that were wrong with you. Actually, my heart has always loved you. I remember all the good things you have done for me. I remember you helped me improve my strength, and you always used your spiritual power to help me cultivate. I remember, for 5 years, every day you. Su Ruoyan knelt there, trying to reawaken Chu Zhetian's past love for her. Shut up. Don't mention any of that. It was me who was blind before. Hearing these things now, it will only make me disgusted. You make me very dissatisfied. Chu Zhetian directly roared to interrupt. The final words, unsatisfied, fell, and Zhang Beichen, who had already blinded his own eyes, immediately felt his soul leave his body. The other party wasn't satisfied. He and his son, Chu Kongqing, would have to die. He had already sacrificed his own eyes, but if it was because of Su Ruoyan that Chu Zhetian wasn't satisfied, he wouldn't be able to close his eyes even in death. Su Ruoyan, you bitch. When did I force myself on you? Clearly, you were the one who actively seduced me. I've already stabbed out my eyes. Why aren't you doing it yet? Are you trying to kill us all? Zhang Beichen said, and actually pounced towards Su Ruoyan with his teeth and claws. It was fortunate that he was blocked by chains and didn't touch Su Ruoyan. Otherwise, judging from this posture, he would have liked to dig out Su Ruoyan's eyeballs with his own hands. Pshh. However, he didn't need to do it himself, as Su Hongtu suddenly made a move. 2 fingers, as sharp as steel, fiercely stabbed into his eldest daughter's eyes. Ah! Su Ruoyan immediately let out a shrill scream. After Su Hongtu pulled out his fingers, her beautiful peach blossom eyes had also turned into a pair of blood holes. The whole person immediately fell to the ground and rolled, convulsing with pain. And seeing this scene, Bai Hongqiu, who was holding them, didn't stop him either. Now they had a common goal, to make Chu Zhetian satisfied. In this way, the other party would be willing to protect the Su family, which also meant he'd be willing to let them live. So, Bai Hongqiu and Bai Pengquan, holding the hostages, would only cooperate and make the Su family act out this tragedy, or rather, this ugly drama. Good son-in-law, I will help you blind this unworthy daughter. Actually, I have always known that you are my most outstanding disciple and are the best son-in-law in the world. But I was blinded by lard before, because of your background, and also because of the influence of this unworthy daughter, which is why I have always looked down on you. I know that as the first peak master, I am not entirely relying on you. If it weren't for you, this sect's first genius, and if it weren't for the myriad transformations gathering spirit array you set up, me and the Qinglong Peak would be nothing. I know I was wrong. It is true that I, the master, was blind before, and I, the father-in-law, was not satisfied before. I will now repent to you. Su Hongtu said this, and using his 2 blood-covered fingers, which had just poked out his daughter's eyes, he stabbed into his own eyes. Pshh. His eyes also became bloody and blurred, becoming 2 blood holes. Ha ha ha, good son-in-law. Now, are you satisfied? Seeing this scene, everyone present revealed a look of astonishment. One must say, Su Hongtu was really extremely utilitarian and ruthless. In order to make Chu Zhetian satisfied, and to save his own life, he had actually poked out his own daughter's eyes. Right, and that Kongqing, that little bastard, and my little daughter. I will stab them out now. At this moment, Su Hongtu suddenly thought of something, and stared with his 2 blood holes at the back. He made a move as if to poke out Su Ruoyan's eyes too. Seeing his father's crazed appearance, Su Ruoyan's face immediately changed drastically, and her eyes were full of terror. He knew that Su Hongtu really would do it. Stop. Enough. However, just at this moment, Chu Zhetian shouted in a stern voice and immediately stopped Su Hongtu. Chapter 98. Kill Su Ruoyan first. Boom. At Chu Zhetian's words, Su Hongtu hadn't reacted, but Bai Hongqiu kicked him away, preventing him from harming Su Ruoyan. No other reason. Of everyone present, Chu Zhetian's words were now the most effective. Su Ruoyan breathed a sigh of relief, and a complicated expression flashed in her eyes as she looked at Chu Zhetian. Everything has nothing to do with Su Ruoyan. Chu Kongqing doesn't count either. He's still young. If he dares to do evil in the future, I will personally end him. At this moment, Chu Zhetian spoke coldly. In his previous life, when he was crossing the tribulation, Chu Kongqing's resentful expression was also vivid in Chu Zhetian's memory, especially because he always treated him as his own son, and this caused a deeper hurt. But at the moment, The other party was still just a 4-year-old child. Seeing the fate of Su Hongtu, Su Ruoyan, and Zhang Beichen now, he had vented his anger. For year-old Chu Kongqing, let it go for now. If the other party ever provoked him or Yueyue, then he would deal with it. Ha 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 ha. Just then, Su Ruoyan, who was writhing in pain, let out a burst of shrill laughter. Her laughter was filled with deep resentment, jealousy, and mockery. What has nothing to do with Su Ruoyan? Ha 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 ha. Chu Zhetian, I think you've had a relationship with this little slut, Su Ruoyan, haven't you? You couldn't bear to see her blind, could you? Why? Why are you being so cruel to me now, yet so sympathetic to this little bitch? Su Ruoyan sat on the ground, and her 2 eyes had become blood holes, yet she still seemed to be glaring at Chu Zhetian. At this moment, she looked like a female ghost. Accompanied by 2 lines of blood tears, she questioned Chu Zhetian in a harsh voice. Once, it was clearly herself who was held in the man's palm. For 5 years, he had been so compliant, obedient, and loving to her. But now, why could he be so ruthless? Why? Why? At this moment, Su Ruoyan's inner self, besides resentment and unwillingness, still had not a shred of remorse. This kind of woman would never look for the reason within herself. She only felt that it was Chu Zhetian who was unfaithful, fickle, and petty. Even if she'd had an affair, even if her son wasn't his, could he be so ruthless? What was the meaning of their 5 years of marriage? Facing the woman's hysteria, Chu Zhetian just looked at her expressionlessly. Of course, he wouldn't bother to explain to Su Ruoyan that he and her sister had always been clean before he broke off their relationship. Slap. However, Chu Zhetian didn't react. Someone directly slapped the frenzied Su Ruoyan. Bastard! Shut up! Stop barking! Su Hongtu identified the location by listening to the sound and fiercely slapped her. In the next second, this former master, father-in-law, knelt on the ground and forced out a flattering smile. Zhetian, is it enough? Is it really enough? In other words, are you willing to spare our lives? Chu Zhetian nodded. That's enough. Actually, from the very beginning, Chu Zhetian didn't want the Su family and Zhang Beichen to die. The hostages included Su Ruoyan. He couldn't ignore this girl. And most importantly, no matter what, Su Hongtu was the second elder's grandson, and Su Ruoyan was his great-granddaughter. He couldn't, without the second elder's presence, truly watch the direct descendants of the old man die miserably. Now, they had gotten their due retribution, and that was enough. The most cruel revenge often wasn't to kill them immediately. To let them live in darkness for a lifetime, perhaps it was more painful than death. As the words, "that's enough," came from Chu Zhetian's mouth, the Su family's faces became ecstatic. Similarly, Bai Changqing, Jianlian, Bai Hengqiu, and Bai Pengkuan all looked full of hope. Good. Since that's enough, then you all make way. Once we leave the Tai Xu Sect for 100 miles, we will release these hostages. Bai Changqing's voice carried a touch of excitement. Yushui Han, the 4 elders, including Ma Fenghua and Pei Liantian, all made way for Bai Changqing and Jianlian. Today's events were decided entirely by Chu Zhetian. Since he had softened his stance, even if Yushui Han and others were unwilling, they could only let Bai and Ji leave. However, just at this moment, Chu Zhetian looked at Bai Changqing as if he were an idiot and asked, I only said that I would protect the Su family. When did I say that I would let you leave? Swish. At the sound, Bai Changqing and Ji Ilian's faces changed drastically. Boom. Boom. At the same time, Chu Zhetian punched out 2 fist marks and fiercely struck at Bai and Ji's lower abdomen. The 2, already seriously injured, flew backward. After landing, their faces were as pale as paper. Both of their dantian were shattered by Chu Zhetian's punches. Their cultivation, abolished. Chu Zhetian. Bai Changqing roared with resentment and anger, and then shouted with all his strength, Hengqiu, Pengkuan, kill. Chu Zhetian never intended to let us go. Slaughter the Su family, and drag a few of them to be buried with us. Kill. And Chu Zhetian's sudden attack not only made Bai and Ji despair and go crazy, but also made Su Hongtu and the others feel angry and fearful. Chu Zhetian, you beast! You played us? Su Hongtu cursed with a face like a mourning dog. Because of his anxious anger, his eyes, which had become blood holes, even spewed out fresh blood. Chu Zhetian, you will not die a good death. We blinded our own eyes for you, yet you broke your promise. Zhang Beichen also cursed frantically, and Su Ruoyan felt Bai Hengqiu's sword again toward her neck and immediately fell into an ice cave. In this flash of lightning and flint, she rapidly thought and said in a hurried voice, "Don't kill me. Kill Su Ruoyan first. She's the one Chu Zhetian truly cares about." Swish! Bai Hengqiu reacted upon hearing this and slashed with a sword towards Su Ruoyan. Faced with Chu Zhetian's sudden attack, Bai Hengqiu had no certainty of being able to kill all the hostages in his hand before the other party attacked. So, since they were all going to die, they had to kill the person Chu Zhetian cared about most. And from everything that had happened before, Chu Zhetian didn't care about Su Hongtu and Su Ruoyan at all. In fact, he was ruthless to the extreme. What he cared about, on the contrary, was this former sister-in-law. In this moment, Su Ruoyan felt the whistling wind of the sword, and instead became calm. Her beautiful eyes looked toward Chu Zhetian, carrying desolation and despair. As if, before her death, she had to remember his face. Buzz. However, in that moment, Su Ruoyan suddenly felt that her body was enveloped by a powerful and marvelous fluctuation. Chapter 99. Who stands with me? At this critical moment, Su Ruoyan's body was suddenly covered with a layer of golden light. This was Chu Zhetian's protective divine ability, the indestructible golden bell. That's right. This divine ability could indeed be added to others. Su Ruoyan, who had thought she was going to die, heard the ringing sound and saw the golden light enveloping her. Her expression immediately became incredibly interesting. Shock, fear, joy, gratitude, relief, guilt. Her beautiful eyes looked at Chu Zhetian, and her expression changed from complex and resentful to full of affection. This honest bastard had prepared a backup plan all along. Perhaps from the beginning, he had made full preparations to protect her, and she had actually thought he was going to abandon her. Buzz. And Chu Zhetian didn't have time to notice Su Ruoyan's lingering gaze. While using the indestructible golden bell, he released another immensely powerful energy from his body. This energy was like an earthquake, like a tsunami. It even distorted the space. A powerful force field radiated from Chu Zhetian's body. This ability was another ability possessed after his body-refining realm reached the Shattered Mountain stage. The physical force field. After releasing the physical force field, he could, within a certain range, create attraction or repulsion against targets around him. This ability didn't cause any damage to enemies in the Shattered Mountain stage, but if used well, it could play an unexpected role at a critical moment. Swish. The attraction released from Chu Zhetian's body was aimed directly at Chu Kongqing. The target immediately flew towards Chu Zhetian as if being sucked in by an invisible hand. This caused Bai Pengqiu, who had originally planned to kill Chu Kongqing directly, to apply his force into the empty air. In fact, seeing Chu Zhetian move against Bai Ji, Bai Hengqiu, and Bai Pengqiu had responded with the most decisive action. They immediately intended to kill the hostages, but no matter what, they couldn't have imagined that Chu Zhetian would have such a trick. At the same time as the indestructible golden bell protected Su Ruoyan, the physical force field had also pulled Chu Kongqing over. This sudden shift stunned Bai Hengqiu and Bai Pengqiu for a split second, and that split second was enough. Pshh. With two beams of sword light instantly slashed out by Chu Zhetian, Bai Hengqiu and Bai Pengqiu's heads soared into the sky. Their eyes were wide open. There seemed to be endless unwillingness. Even until the moment of their deaths, they didn't understand how Chu Zhetian had such a method. Divine ability. Chu Zhetian, you have already comprehended heavenly Tao principles? Bai Chang'e, however, saw the inner workings of things and said in disbelief. Yushui Han, the other four elders, and all the golden core cultivators revealed a look of amazement. The use of already isn't quite right. Is comprehending the heavenly Tao principles that difficult? Chu Zhetian said casually playing the role of a badass. To be honest, it was quite difficult. In the previous life, even until the Tribulation, he had only comprehended two heavenly Tao principles, which were the Tao of the Sword and the Tao of the Five Elements. The Prison Dragon Break Lock, Attack Divine Ability, contained the Tao of the Sword, and the Indestructible Golden Bell contained the Tao of Gold and Earth from the Tao of the Five Elements. Of course, Chu Zhetian had other trump cards and divine abilities as well. His words caused all the cultivators above the Golden Core level to be deeply affected, and Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian exchanged a glance, and a look of sorrow and bitter laughter appeared on their faces. At 20-something, a nascent soul cultivator who has comprehended heavenly Tao principles. Chu Zhetian, perhaps, you are truly the sect star of destiny. If I hadn't taken this step, perhaps one day I could have watched you lead the Tai Xu Sect and stand at the pinnacle of this world. Pity, pity. Bai Changqing's eyes were filled with a hint of regret and sadness. He had been stuck at the peak of the Golden Core 9th level for decades and had chosen this path in order to break through. But he never expected that it would be so easy for Chu Zhetian. It was foreseeable that within a few years, or even sooner, Yu Shuihan and the other elders might also enter the nascent soul realm with Chu Zhetian's help. If he had no ulterior motives towards the sect, why couldn't he also ascend to heaven with Chu Zhetian? However, everything was too late, and Ji Inlian's inner self also felt regret. What happened? Is the crisis resolved? At this moment, Su Hongtu touched with his hands vaguely and asked in disbelief. Su Ruoyan and Zhang Beichen also opened their two blood holes and turned their heads around. It seemed they were trying to determine whether the crisis still existed. It's all right. Bai Hongqiu and Bai Pengkuan have been defeated, Yu Shuihan said faintly. What? They're dead just like that? How could it be so simple? Where's that little bitch Su Ruoyan? Has she died? Su Ruoyan looked shocked, then asked with a touch of jealousy. Hearing this, Su Ruoyan said with a heh, Su Ruoyan, you wanted me to die so badly? I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm fine. What? You didn't die? Su Ruoyan asked angrily. Yes, I was saved by my brother-in-law, Su Ruoyan said mockingly. She looked at the miserable state of her sister and father, and she couldn't say what she felt. Her sister Su Ruoyan couldn't wait for her to die, and had even reminded Bai Hongqiu to kill her first. And her father, Su Hongtu, was so ruthless he wanted to poke out her eyes too. Seeing her father and sister being forced to self-mutilate by Chu Zhetian, Su Ruoyan found that she had no resentment towards him. Chu Zhetian, was it Chu Zhetian who saved you? How did he do it? Why did he protect you? This heartless dog of a man is so cruel to me now. But why is he taking care of you so much? Ah. Su Ruoyan shouted in a crazed manner. Her two eye sockets, combined with the two blood holes, made her look particularly frightening. And at this moment, Zhang Beichen, anxious and panicked, shouted, Kongqing? Where's Kongqing? Godfather, I'm fine. Chu Kongqing was saved by Chu Zhetian earlier, and then tossed onto the ground. He climbed up and shouted. But seeing Zhang Beichen and Su Ruoyan's terrifying appearances, he didn't dare to approach them at all. Is everyone all right? Didn't anyone die? Chu Zhetian, how did you do it? You could clearly save all of us with ease, right? Yet you still forced us to dig out our own eyes. How cruel you are. At this moment, Su Hongtu immediately realized something and shouted with all his might. Su Ruoyan and Zhang Beichen, hearing this, also revealed a look of grief and indignation. At this moment, the three blind people showed no gratitude to Chu Zhetian for saving their lives. Instead, they hated him to the bone. Chu Zhetian looked at them, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He hadn't expected the three to be grateful to him. He only saved them for the sake of the second elder. In the next second, he carried the power of the White Hongqiu's and Bai Pengkuan's deaths and looked around the scene. Who here is an accomplice of Bai Changqing and Ji Inlian? Stand up yourself. Chapter 100. The last person to be in contact. That afternoon, Tai Xu Sect, Ancestor Worshipping Square. Yu Shuihan, the four elders, and many high-ranking sect members stood on the high platform. Chu Zhetian stood beside Sect Master Yu, his expression cold, looking down. At this moment, he was no longer a provisional elder, but the Zhetian guardian of the sect. The position of guardian of the sect was specially established for Chu Zhetian after deliberation by Yu Shuihan, the four elders, and many high-ranking sect members. It meant to guard the sect. His position within the Tai Xu Sect was equal to that of the sect master and the elders. In an emergency, his orders were equivalent to the sect master's orders. Other rights were also extraordinary. And Chu Zhetian, as a nascent sole great power, had this time broken by Chang'e and Ji Ilian's plot to overthrow the sect, which fully deserved these privileges. At this moment, on the square beneath the ancestor-worshipping high platform, there were a full 33 people kneeling. They were Bai and Ji, and all their accomplices. Bai Chang'e and Ji Ilian knew they were going to die, but appeared incredibly calm. But Ji Wuji and his accomplices' faces were full of grief and unwillingness. Yu Shuihan, Chu Zhetian. You said that if we turned back, there was still a chance. You deceived us to come out and admit it, but you broke your promise. I don't accept it. Ji Wuji shouted with a gnashing of his teeth. Yu Shuihan snorted coldly. What right do you have not to accept it? And you still have the face to say you turned back? Only after everything was settled, did you take the initiative to come out and admit it and wanted to be forgiven? There's no such good thing in this world. Today is to execute you traitors in front of the ancestors in order to correct the situation. Once disloyal, you're forever useless. Kill. This sect master of the Tai Xu Sect's voice was filled with a decisive killing intent. As he waved his hand, heads rolled on the ground one by one. Chu Zhetian sat there, only feeling a wisp of heat spreading throughout his body. The essence of blood and flesh from the corpses of these traitors was actually being absorbed by his blood wheel eye. This wave increased his physical strength by over 200 pounds. Now, the internal troubles are gone. The remaining things are to destroy the Dark Knight Palace and kill that evil ancestor. If the evil ancestor doesn't die for a day, the demonic seed on Yueyue won't be removed for a day. In addition, I don't know what happened between that demon woman, Yilingmei, and the Dark Knight Palace. Last time in Jinhong City, she seemed to have broken with the Dark Knight Palace. In his heart, Chu Zhetian naturally hoped that Yilingmei would truly cut ties with the Dark Knight Palace. No matter what, this demon woman was Yueyue's biological mother. Although she had set him up several times, Chu Zhetian hoped that there would still be room for reconciliation between them. 1 hour later, within the sect master's mansion. Sect master, what did you say? The second elder, he left to look for me and has not returned? And completely lost contact? Chu Zhetian asked with a surprised voice. Yu Shuihan nodded and smiled wryly. Yes. Your trick of deceiving the heavens really fooled everyone. Not only the second elder, but I also thought something had happened to you before. The second elder, even more concerned about your safety, believed that he needed to see a person alive and see a corpse dead, and went to the direction of Jinhong City to find you. Previously, Yu Shuihan was afraid of affecting Chu Zhetian's state of mind, so he didn't go into details. He only said that the second elder was not in the sect. Now that Bai Chang'e, Ji Ilian, and the others were dead and everything had settled, he told Chu Zhetian about this matter. Hearing the bad news, Chu Zhetian's expression was filled with worry. How could the second elder have lost contact? If it was because of him, and something happened to the old man, Chu Zhetian would live a lifetime of self-blame. Sect Master, tell me in detail what exactly happened? Chu Zhetian took a deep breath and asked in a deep voice. Yu Shuihan nodded and told him everything he knew. After all, he had sent people to investigate during the period when Su Beiwang was out of contact. After a long while, Yu said, before the second elder disappeared, the last person he contacted was Imo Qingfei of the Ink Feather Sect? Chu Zhetian's expression had a strange look on his face. That's right. This talented girl of the Ink Feather Sect nearly died in the Jinhong mountain range before, and the second elder saved her and took her back to the border to recuperate. Before the second elder left the border for the last time, to look for you, He had a private conversation with this Emo Qingfei. What they talked about is unknown. But other than the Tai Xu Sect disciples stationed at the Jinhong border, the last outsider contacted by the second elder was undoubtedly Emo Qingfei. Perhaps the second elder's disappearance has something to do with her? Yu Shuihan frowned. This matter was a bit tricky. After all, it involved the Ink Feather Sect. And the other party was the most powerful sect in Qinglu Prefecture, and their foundation and overall strength were not comparable to the Tai Xu Sect. Even though Zhetian had now broken through to the nascent soul, he couldn't bridge the gap between him and the Ink Feather Sect in a short period of time. After all, there were also nascent soul great powers within the other sect. And there was more than one. Possibly. Chu Zhetian nodded with a cold expression and started muttering inwardly. Could Emo Qingfei have discovered that Big Ox was himself? So she attacked the second elder? It shouldn't be. He shouldn't have revealed his flaws. Sect Master, that Emo Qingfei isn't at the Jinhong border now, is she? Did she return to the Ink Feather Sect? Chu Zhetian asked. She left the border, but didn't return to the sect. I found out that she's now in Dongqing City. Yu Shuihan narrowed his eyes. Dongqing City was the third largest city within the Ink Feather Sect's territory. I see. Chu Zhetian nodded, and then directly stood up and was about to leave. Zhetian, what are you going to do? I know you care about the second elder's safety, but don't act rashly and go find that Emo Qingfei. The whole Ink Feather Sect treats this heavenly chosen girl as a treasure, and that Dongqing City has a nascent soul ancestor of the Ink Feather Sect guarding it. This ancestor is also the great-grandfather of Emo Qingfei. So, this matter requires caution. Yu Shuihan was startled and immediately advised. Sect Master, rest assured, I won't act rashly. I'm going to go to the Jinhong mountain range first and see if there are any clues left behind by the second elder. And then go to Dongqing City, Chu Zhetian said in a steady voice, and then his tone changed. Sect Master, don't forget that conspiracy of the Dark Knight Palace that we heard from by Chang'e and Jianlian. So, I must go to Dongqing City. Hearing this, Yu Shuihan's eyes sharpened. Zhetian, you mean? During the interrogation of Bai Changqe and Jianlian before, they obtained a secret intelligence. The evil ancestor of the Dark Knight Palace was planning to carry out an evil plan in Dongqing City recently. The target was the nascent soul ancestor of the Ink Feather Sect. I will act according to the situation at that time. Chu Zhetian said in a deep voice, his eyes flickering with a strange gleam.